Forward to the cloud. Okay, everybody, you are being recorded. If that's an issue, go ahead and mute yourself or deactivate your video. Thank you for coming out to the second Yes California Board of Directors meeting. I want to thank Christine, Nicholas, Darren, Hannah, Robert, Jeremy, John, Stephen, and Christian, and Jason for coming out. In addition to the now 38 members of the board, we've been able to grow initially over 2 weeks to about 25, and then we grew by another 10 in about 3 days following that. I've been sending out emails of the additional members that have come on board. We have an Indigenous rights activist. There's just so many details. We have an Indigenous rights activist. We have a marketing expert, Don Sutton. We have another California practicing lawyer. So now we have 2 California lawyers who can practice law in California. We have a marketing and real estate fundraising expert, Don Sutton. There's another, Michael Hale, followed California exit movement from 2015. We got another Spanish speaker. And then we picked up 2 of the original CalExit members from also from 2017, Mitchell Beecher and Richard Longshanks. That's not actually his name. He works in Hollywood. So we've been able to get a lot of old members. We're getting a lot of new members. We're growing up to 40 people. It's happened very fast. I'm looking to get the board up to 80 people. I think I can do that given the growth rate that we've had so far. Now that's going to have some challenges for how to keep it all organized, but I would rather have what we call good problems, where we have a lot of people enthused. We have a big conversation. We're making all sorts of stuff happen, and it's up to me to keep it all organized rather than bad problems, which is where I was 3 months ago. Hey, dude, I just see you. Is there a movement? Is anybody else in California even thinking about doing this? What are you doing? Who are you working with? How's it happening? That's the bad problem we need to get away from, that there is a real movement and there is people doing this. And we're going into the good problem of we're going to have so many people doing so many high impact projects. It's going to take some effort to keep it organized, but I would rather do that. I would rather handle that because I think that's a challenge that we can fix. I think it's a challenge that Yes California has a lot of access to doing. And that's why we're here. The board of directors is Yes California getting back into the game, and everybody's welcome to show up. Now, only board members can speak from 11 to 1. We only ask board members to attend 1 hour. You can stay for the whole thing, and only board members can participate. Around 1 p.m., we open it up to the public, and anyone can ask questions, and every meeting is recorded. That's the basics of this. Additionally, we're not asking people, you have to support CalExit. What we said, which I was inspired by Nicholas Wildstar on, was we changed the message. We said, after January 6th, when you saw a coup in the federal government, and that on MSNBC, Chuck Todd talked about a month ago, America now resembles a failed Venezuelan electoral system. He didn't even know January 6th was going to happen. And then Politico magazine a month ago said, yeah, America looks like a failed Latin country. So that's Politico and MSNBC, Meet the Press, said that a month ago. And then January 6th happened. And so when I go to people, and I've said this to 38 people, and not one person has disagreed, not one. Hey, you and I are standing on a boat. Water's rising, coming up to our knees. Boat's clearly sinking. And I walk up to you and I go, can we have a conversation about building a life raft? And you say, what a dumb idea. Is that really dumb? Who's really being stupid? When I say that to 39 people, every single one of them chuckled and goes, yeah, I get it. This is a rational conversation to have, even if you don't believe in it. Clearly things are destabilized, and clearly you are hoping in unicorns to believe that everything's going to work out just perfectly, and maybe it will. But really, after everything you've seen, you need to be questioning if we need to have a conversation about this? You're unreasonable. That's the angle. We built a board of 39 people, half of whom never been part of the movement before. And that's what I'd like you to tell others. We are looking for additional critical thinkers. You do not have to believe in CalExit, but you do have to believe. Folks, it's unreasonable for us to go, that's silly that you would even think you'd have to go it alone. You're silly. So we've gotten a lot of people doing that. Thanks, Nick, for inspiring me. It's been a great talking point. Moving directly onto the agenda. I'm going to cover the agenda real quick. Guest presenter, Hannah Miyamoto. Hannah's not a board member or an advisor. She's a presenter here. She's going to talk about how to loosen the cultural attachment to the USA by teaching Californians about the horrible military conquest and invasion of California by the American military. She's launching a new California history channel called the California War. YouTube channels are very popular, and history YouTube channels are very popular. It's a way to reach out to teaching children, adults, and politicians. In addition, it sets up the legal case for the fact that America doesn't actually own California, and it violated international law, and it would never stand up for in criminal court or The Hague if it was ever tried and tried to explain it. So Darren Brown is going to be talking about a new podcast he's launching. Very professional. I listened to the advertisement. It's a good, he's got all his ducks in a line and T's crossed. He wants to interview everyone on the board. He'll also be doing an introduction of himself. Dewonk Mahajan and Jason have been working together. They're one of the two people who met here on the board of directors. Never met each other before. Jason heard Dewonk's project and they immediately started connecting, and apparently Jason gets this way better than me. Dewonk may or may not be here today. He'll definitely be here next week. Jason's going to cover some of it. They have a way of developing artificial intelligence machines in order to determine, scrolling the internet for the best terms to explain California independence. Once we have that data, we can then package it and sell it to companies and fundraise. So we can both poll the best way to explain ourselves and then make money for the movement off the very same thing. Dewonk seems to think, and he has the data science background, that that's potentially worth millions of dollars. I said a million, and he kept correcting me and going, no, Marcus, multi-millions. I don't know. They're going to look into it. You judge and be critical. You don't have to think everything's a good idea. We're not slamming ideas, but every one of you should have your critical mind on going, is that true? What about that? Did you check that out? Maybe you could do this. Critical comments are good. Criticism for being negative is not. So we'll find out. Then Marcus, Alistair, Farhad, Mitchell, and Dawn have all agreed to look into how to incorporate Yes California and then file that incorporation on the 501c4 political party registration forms in order to be able to fundraise as a political party with complete legal immunity and raise $1 million. Not my idea. Maybe that's fantastical, but Farhad is a practicing lawyer. Alistair does work with venture capitalist funds and does raise about $800,000 in donations to businesses that he works for. He doesn't have the money. He raises money for others. And so Alistair, who's raised almost $900,000, had the exact same idea as Farhad, and they never met each other before. Then I ran that by Don Sutton, who does have close to $1 million in escrow, and he said, yeah, makes sense. And then I ran that by Mitchell Beecher, who, if you know him, he's an old school CalExit guy, one of the smartest. He's our Einstein, basically. And he said, yeah. Then we have polling data from Jeremy Zogby showing 40% of Californians would be up for secession. We also have a presentation by John Simha on how to use the Gilded app in order to develop a social media conversation. Matt Owens is reaching out to foreign nations, and he has a speech about that. And then Nicholas Wildstar and Michael Plumhoff and Marcus are working on the recall debate. We're going to have a webinar about that after this around 2, if anybody would like to be part of that. But I'm definitely working with Nick Wildstar and Michael Plumhoff on the recall debate, and we're definitely moving forward with that as YesCal. Also, please join our WhatsApp. There's a link, and that's where we're going to have the conversations. And finally, if you join the WhatsApp, you would have seen the 200 people who have signed the Yes California CalExit petition. I want to thank Nicholas Wildstar. He got most of those photos, but not all. John Simha and many other people participated. Lewis, how's it going, brother? Thanks for coming out. Awesome. And so we have 200 photos. When you go to the WhatsApp, you join it, you're going to see 200 faces of people who signed a petition to explore how we keep our federal taxes money here, because we're a donor state and independence would allow us to do that. The phrasing Nicholas has works like a chimp. We used it in the Bay Area. Southern California, Sacramento, Interior California, Inland Empire, liberals, conservatives, people who like Newsom, people who don't like Newsom, everybody reacted the same. And we have photos of them. So we're proving that even though Joe Biden was elected, ain't no one care out here in California. They don't hate Biden, but they don't think America's stable. So those are the agenda items we'll go through. Let's get started with a presentation by Hannah Miyamoto for 10 minutes. Hannah is not a board member. She's not an advisor to the board. She's not going to be on the board. I already worked this out with Hannah, but she has a brilliant marketing idea. And for 10 minutes, I'd like her to explain the California
Marcus, I put a message. Can you let Darren go first?
Sure. Darren, would you like to go first on the podcast?
Sure. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. So
Floor's
thank
yours.
you. Yeah, I'll try not to take too long. Thank you, Marcus, for letting me speak for a few minutes here. So first, I wanted to introduce myself. I wasn't able to make it last week when all the introductions were being made, so I just wanted to say hi to everybody personally and tell you a little about who I am. I'm a community college professor in Stockton, and first started getting thinking about these California issues, I'd say almost a year ago. I was kind of in the Bernie 2020 campaign and got kind of disillusioned how all that went down. And then started coming to some of the CalExit meetings on Sundays a few months ago, and kind of went on from there. So I want to relate, before I go into a little bit more about the podcast, I want to make a point that the idea for this podcast came about during one of those Sunday meetings that we had a couple months ago, where Hannah was talking about this project that she's going to talk about in just a few minutes, but it hadn't actually come about yet. But she was just asking, does anybody have any ideas about this? What do you think about it? How could we promote it? Just asking questions. And I thought, well, one way you might promote it, I listened to a lot of podcasts, and I thought, well, somebody could just cut audio tracks of the videos and put them into podcast form. And that's one other way to reach people. I mean, if you want to get all the different ways that you could get out there to attract an audience. And once people kind of said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, then I started thinking about, well, if you're going to make a podcast with audio tracks of the episodes, you might as well use it for other things. So that started the idea of, well, then just do what a lot of podcasts do as well. You could interview people. And so that's kind of how it started. So the reason I bring this up is that's really what these board meetings are for. And that's what happened there is what was supposed to be happening here. That we were discussing ideas, somebody bounced off an idea off other people, and it ended up going in another positive direction. So I just wanted to point that out, that there's the very existence of the podcast itself wouldn't have come about if there wasn't a dialogue between people like we're having right now. So I just wanted to point that out. As far as the purpose of the podcast, as I said, the one purpose is to host audio versions of the project that Hannah is doing. The other one is to interview board members. I want it to kind of, the tone I'm striking for, besides making sure that it's, professional appearance and everything, is to kind of strike a balance so that it appeals to a wide variety. So I want it to kind of be comfortable or appealing to everybody from, grassroots BLM activists, maybe, all the way up to ordinary people, up to politicians, up to like the attorney general or the governor could listen to it. So that's a wide variety that you're trying to strike a balance between. I think it's possible to thread that needle a bit. And I just want to say something about podcasting in general, if you're not too familiar with it. So podcasting, compared to other social media and other kind of marketing or ways to get audience, it's not as broad in the sense that you're not going to get the numbers that you get with a Facebook or Twitter or national news or things like that. So you're generally going to get a much smaller audience, but they end up being much more engaged. You get a higher, they call it CTA involved, so call to action is a thing. So for instance, I've looked at some evidence that shows that when people who have a really strong podcast audience do a call to action, they could have between 30 to 50% of their regular listeners follow through on it. And that's compared to like maybe 1 to 2% for blogs or Facebook posts. So even if you get a much smaller audience, if you get them really engaged, they can follow through. And the other thing is that I look at this as a long-term project. You know, you can come at somebody really fast and say, hey, you got to be along with me, and kind of bang it into their head. This is the way it has to be. And it's not really the only way to persuade somebody. You can persuade somebody by just kind of putting little ideas in their head over and over and over again, and just say, like, today you talk about, you know, we're to talk about the Supreme Court and the federal judiciary. Tomorrow we're going to talk about, you know, maybe immigration. The day after that we'll talk about, or, you know, a few days after that, we'll have a conversation on the indigenous people and Return California. And you don't have to explicitly say, and this means we have to leave. You just put these ideas out there, and after several months or so, if you get like a dozen little ideas in their head, people can put the puzzles pieces together in their own mind. So that's the idea. I look at this as being, you know, a year or 2 years project where people have somewhere you can go. You want to go in the archives and, you know, find out about this or what somebody thinks about that. They can go back and look that up. So I will be
Testing,
eventually.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I will eventually be, you know, the idea is to interview everybody on the board. There's a lot of people on the board, and I am busy, so I don't imagine that I could do more than one person a week. So don't feel slighted if it ends up being several weeks or a while until I get to you. If you're thinking, well, I haven't heard from Dan. It's not because I'm overlooking you or anything. And if you let me share just for share screen for just a moment, can I?
Sure, you should have the ability now.
Okay.
I think I activated for anybody. Yeah.
Okay, so this is so there's a hosting platform, and then there's the distribution platforms are like,
Looks
you know,
good, doesn't it?
Spotify and Stitcher and, you know, Amazon Music and all. So there's like a dozen, or actually there's like 20 or 30 major platforms all around the world, but this is the hosting. So if you don't want to get an app, you can just go to the web page, and this is Simplecast as the host, and this is the trailer episode. There's the description there, and you can see the episodes on the right. So or on the left. So these are the most recent ones that you can see there. I already last night I put up the audio version of California War. So you could go and listen to that. I have my own introduction, and I cut the audio for it. And then I have just some selected things that Marcus has said in the past, like he had a message to Iranian people. There's a conversation that Hannah and he had about the judiciary. I have my own little commentary sometime. I'll just go and, you know, cut one of those. You can view all the episodes here. So the address for this is http, well, let me drop it in the chat. Okay, so I'll drop the web address in the chat. And I think that's everything I wanted to get to. I'll hand it off to Hannah.
Okay, well, I just want to say to everybody, please, Darren, if you pop the web address and if you would put your email in the chat, please contact Darren. If you're a board member, I would consider it a personal favor if you would contact Darren and ask for an interview. Darren's not going to trick you. He doesn't do gotcha journalism. It's going to be where you're at. And this is part of the plan of the Yes California Board of Directors, is you don't have to agree with how I think we should go about doing this, but this is the goal. Normative programming, normative programming, normal, 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 normal. Look at all these rational people who believe CalExit could happen or is worthy of talking about it. And Darren's showcasing them. And then we have meetings. And then we have a board of all these people. And then we have chapters. And then we have 200 photos of people who look like regular old people signing the CalExit petition. Over time, we're going to overwhelm the system with numbers. So they have to acknowledge that there's a variety of regular Californians who think this is worth talking about. Normative programming. Please consider and join Darren's podcast. Please do that. The more normal we seem, the better. Okay, moving on. Let's go to Hannah. And then there's a lot of other people. And I got a special treat for Louis Marinelli coming up. Louis, special treat for you. But let's go to Hannah. She's been patient with us. Hannah, for about 10 minutes, could you walk us through how do we separate 40 million Californians from their identification as Americans and push them into a solo California orbit of cultural identification? What do you mean when you say that? And how do you think this video project will achieve that? Ms. Miyamoto.
Okay, everybody. Let me, I'm still adjusting. Here we go. Gosh darn. How does this work? Am I sitting too high? I don't know,
No, you're
look
good.
at I have to remember to look at, oh, I know why. Yeah. Setting up a new computer system, guys. It's going to be fantastic when it's all ready. Okay, so as a meantime, it's hard for me to remember to look at the camera and not at the new screen, which, big screen. Actually, yeah. Okay, I'm going to mostly on PowerPoint anyway, so it won't that much difference. I'd like to introduce by reminding you, I don't know if you ever heard of a song called They'll Always Be in England, but it's from 1938, just before the Second World War. And the most memorable lines that I can think of are, "They'll always be in England, and England shall be free, if England means as much to you as England means to me." And then obviously during the war, Vera Lynn made a famous recording, and it went down in history. But I think it illustrates actually a real basic thing, and I'm really glad I'm following Darren, which is that, what is a nation? Most of you think a nation, or how do you know you're in a nation or a state, in a sovereign state, right? You're not thinking to yourself because there's a police officer, or because there's a military, or because there's a media that's got red, white, and blue on its insignia everywhere you look, like Fox News or CNN. No. These are actually all just symptoms of one other thing. What a nation really is, and I think it's probably a good time now to start screen sharing. What a nation really is, and by the way, you see that Pacifico Studios? That's what I'm officially going to represent now. That's the official studio that's producing videos. What a nation really represents, please work. There we go. What a nation really begins, I would contend, is identification. There has to be a population, a territory, and a bunch of people who believe in that nation. Hence that song, right? If England means as much to you, it could just as well say if America means as much to you, or if California means as much to you, and how much does it mean to you? That's what a nation really is. And that's why I would contend, like the Soviet Union, we always surprised here in the West that the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. But if you look back, I remember studying the Soviet Union in high school in the 1970s, and they couldn't conceal the fact that a lot of the young people were getting very, very cynical about the USSR. Not just the repression, but the fact that there weren't jobs, there weren't good jobs. Clearly, the people in the West were living better lives, and the more open the USSR got, the less people started believing the USSR. So really, all successful states are held together by a shared belief in historical mythology. And I say mythology correctly in the sense of, look at our Star-Spangled Banner. Most of you probably know it has something to do with the War of 1812, right? But how many of you could tell me the whole story? Who wrote the song? How did the War of 1812 begin? What were the major issues? Who was president then? And on and on and on, right? You just have a vague sense that, yeah, 1812, I guess it was against the English, wasn't it? Yeah. And there was a lot of rockets, red glare in it. And I would contend that the U.S. is in crisis because that popular consensus in this United States has dissolved. And I'm going to go into more detail on that. An example of this is the French Republic, which maybe you don't realize, but France has had 5 republics, right? 2 empires, and since 1789. But the facts are, every Frenchman knows about the tennis court oath. That's the moment in which the people of France decided to defy the king, right? And so that photograph, if you were a French person, you'd recognize instantly. It's just like Washington crossing the Delaware in the United States of America. Again, why was Washington crossing the Delaware? Why wasn't he using the bridge? Did he run out of change? You know. So I would contend that the California War is that ideal potential symbol, just like Washington crossing the Delaware or Gettysburg or whatever. And yeah, there's an image that you probably have never seen before, but that is actually the U.S. Marine Corps painting. It's actually the possession of the U.S. Marine Corps, and it shows American sailors landing in small boats in Monterey. And that building up there, by the way, is actually still standing. That's the old custom house, which is in Monterey. Now, why is it? Because the heroes are, I would say heroes, because when I'm doing this, it's very easy for me to start identifying. Remember identification, right? Start identifying with the Pio Picos, the Andres Picos, the Alvarados, the Jose Castros, and the people like that, and not identifying with the Fremonts, the Stocktons, the Sloats, the Carneys. And we're not used to that narrative, are we? Right? I mean, when America gets attacked, when California gets attacked in the movies, it's USA, right? So yeah, but what about a world in which there's USA and there's California and they're not on the same side? And that happened in 1846. And the other point is, yeah, like Marcus sort of said, and I will say to you that the California War is current. I'm going to mention that, but the California, I'll mention that instead. So that, yeah, that's the argument. I would contend to you that's our strongest of all arguments. California never should be part of the United States, and therefore, yeah, California should never have been part of the United States, and therefore, the Californians have a perpetual right to independence. And therefore, you don't need to get American approval because under international law, colonies have the right to be decolonized. This is the documentary. Yep, you can see already. That's what you call a video thumbnail, guys. You'll notice the groovy logo. You'll also notice it says about Manifest Destiny. Over half of it's about Manifest Destiny. Where did it come from? Well, I traced it back to December 27, 1845, in a newspaper article, which very quickly seized the American imagination out east. And this image is a famous image, but I think you can sort of see this is the American view of itself, right? Of the beautiful goddess who's holding the school book. If you can't tell, actually you can tell now. School book, and she's dragging a telegraph line into the far wilderness, right, with railroads and houses and cities following right behind her. And you can actually see native people underneath her elbow, by the way, if you look closely. There's actually a native village, but they're not going to be there long. That's the message of this picture. So the CaliforniaWar.com will connect straight to the YouTube. So you don't need to remember a silly little bunch of codes or whatever. Just CaliforniaWar.com, bang, it'll go straight to the YouTube. Oh yeah. So I was just saying. So what I was saying originally about this part about California, yeah. There's already one video up. It's the introductory video. It's 12 minutes long. But I will contend to you it has a very novel achievement, which is that it shows you a picture of UN Resolution 1514 and makes that argument directly. It only takes a minute, literally 60 some seconds, maybe 2 minutes to say, yep, California was invaded, and here's the United, and therefore California maybe isn't just like every other state because California is independent that no other state can do it. And I explain the whole thing. Yeah, this is the click-through rate. If you don't know, that means if you're sitting there and you find out about this, there's a 28% likelihood you're going to click on this. So we're pretty low, but we're getting amazing response because the average click-through rate is 10%. It goes between the 50% are between 2 and 10% click-through. So almost 3 times more people wanna view this video. Got a Facebook page up, which is how we're publicizing, and a Patreon page, which is a system whereby you make a small donation. We've already got a couple of people already on this on this group right now who are making a monthly contribution. I'll explain what I want to do with this money, but the main thing is also I can say that I'm not going to give any prizes for it of any value, but yep. I'm not giving you any prizes for any value, but what I'm doing is saying you can deduct it off your taxes because this is under Ohana Justice Center Charitable Trust. Most Patreons do not have that ability, but you can just deduct it. And also the other thing is I want to have a conversation with people who are interested in this topic, right? And that gets engagement up. But yeah, the main thing is I know it's going very, very slow in production. That's because it's just me doing all the research, all the production, all the editing. It would really be great to get a professional editor. I could say, here's a bunch of stuff. Here's a script. This is what I want to see. Go do it and come back. Meantime, I'm back here, generating the next episode. So this is the other argument, the other piece, which I think is shows a much larger question, which is the question of how do we push California independence in the current year 2021? Especially after, as you know, we've had this riot at the Capitol, this attempted takeover of the government, and I would say, is that it's the result of the fact that the California War story is reveal the much larger questions of how the United States is a lot more than just George Washington's wooden teeth and a trip across the Delaware. That it's militarism, it's violence, and it's racist oppression, and oppression in general against all minorities and disadvantaged groups. And also, if you don't believe me, if you think Manifest Destiny has got any validity, well, the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum is willing to say, yep, the Nazis used the same. They just said, look, that's what the Americans did. So how can you deny Germany the right to become its own, to take over some place and a bunch of inferior people and supplant them with a superior civilization? So
One more minute.
this is all I need to say that I think that that this video project will help, if it's successful, will help convince the American power elite. Because right now, the people who really control this country, that includes the corporate leaders, are Mitch McConnell actually is actually, even though you think he's out of power, they're all still starting to think, what do we do about this far right, this violent far right, and how far are we willing to go to put them down? And I think that if the closer and closer more people in California start demanding independence or start saying, well, you don't really belong here, America, or whatever, changing their identification to one that includes their nationality of Californian, the closer and closer you're going to get. You're going to get more and more energy to just put down these white supremacists culturally, politically, and economically, so that it becomes, they become isolated, much like they are here in California, right? The fact is that how many of these people, we already know one of the people who was killed at that rally was actually a San Diegan who went all the way to Washington, D.C. to get shot dead. So, all right, that's all I got to say. Thank you. Any questions?
Could you turn the screen back?
CaliforniaWar.com. What? Oh, yeah. Stop share, but it's CaliforniaWar.com.
That's the CaliforniaWar.com. Hannah, if you could post the link in chat. CaliforniaWar.com. Basically, the idea is this. America invaded California. It gunned down everybody. It instituted segregation in 1852, 2 years after it got here. It started blocking Asians from owning property. It instituted a genocide against the indigenous. Hey, Brett, what up, brother? And it did all sorts of horrible white supremacist Nazi type things. Now, if you ask a Californian about that, they don't know. This project got started because my little niece, I went over to visit her. And she's like, Uncle Marcus. She calls me Theo. Theo Marcus, look, we're having State Ascension Day. It's so beautiful. California became a state. Yay. And they made little posters. And I went over to my brother and I go, who's teaching about the genocide? Who's teaching about the introduction of segregation in 1852? Who's teaching about Asian people being discriminated against? Who's teaching her that all the Latinos, except for 10%, didn't get a vote? Who's teaching her that people got shot in the face when they said, I don't think this is right? No one. Then I talked to Hannah and she looked it up and found the official California government curriculum. It ain't there. They're straight up lying. Omission of history. So what we realized was, what if people in California actually knew how this place became a state? It's a disgusting, horrible story that will not allow you to be proud. And it's completely accurate and untold. Hannah's going to pioneer this. I would ask you to work with Hannah in any capacity. She's not the SCA board member, but this is a great idea. I want to turn it over for discussion, and then we're going to go to a special treat for Lewis, and then we'll get on to the topics. But does anybody have any comments on how to make this History Channel better to achieve more impact with Californians? It's an open floor. Please be constructive. Anybody now with any points?
Or maybe the larger question about, using, using with media and to change people's creating identification in California as well.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that discussion. I think it's a good idea. I would encourage you to look into it. We'll keep covering it here because the history is not being covered. We need to do that. And Hannah's got a great idea. Hannah will post a link there below. Okay, moving on with the agenda. We're going to go to DeWonk and Jason here in just a second, but I did want to take a moment to salute Louis Marinelli. Thanks for coming out again, brother. And I wanted to apologize. Last week, there was a public discussion forum. So at 11 a.m., we start the Yes California Board of Directors meeting. At 1 p.m., we open it up for the public. People came in and they were asking Louis questions, and I overreacted. I should have let them ask those questions. I was a little bit more protective than I wanted to be. Now, the good news is that Louis, a lot of people called me and said, who the hell's that guy? Where have you been hiding him? Oh my God, is he polished and a good speaker? No BS. So apparently me trying to get in front of you and you go and let me answer all the questions, and the fact that you did so well in a hostile interview, brother, I got to tell you, this half the board called me and said, wow. So congrats to you, and I apologize.
Well, thank you, Marcus. I think that if we can't answer questions from individuals such as those who ask questions during our conferences, then we're going to have a hard time answering questions from skilled interrogators in the media. So it's a good opportunity to take advantage of the practice whenever we get the chance.
Thank you, brother. All right, we're going to go to DeWonk and Jason on AI learning, fundraising. Then we're going to go to how to incorporate YesCA, register as a political party. Then we have polling data. Jeremy Zogby sent us some. John is going to cover a new platform. Matt has something. Nick Wildstar. Nick, thanks for being patient with me. You're towards the second half of the agenda, but I got to tell you, brother, I really want you to stick around if you can, because 200 people signed the CalExit petition, and we got their photos after Biden won. That's normative programming all achieved by itself. And I want you to explain to people what you said, because you're saying the same thing. You ain't changing it. You ain't modifying it for audiences. Oh, this is a Democrat. Let me phrase it this way. It's the same thing. I've seen you. You say it the same way, everyone, every part of California, no matter who you're part of or background. So I want everyone here to learn. We're going to get to that. Let's go to Jason. Jason, in 10 minutes, please be cognizant that not everybody is a techie like you and DeWonk. You and DeWonk have super big brains for tech. I don't. Make this so I can understand. No more than 10 minutes. Roughly, what are you and DeWonk working on so people could join you guys? Be sensitive to my non-techie brain. Okay, please.
Of course. So this is just basically the layman's breakdown of the project that DeWonk has in mind. I'm mainly just doing this as someone, doing this part of the presentation as someone who kind of bridges the gap between the super techie, software engineer like DeWonk and folks like the average ordinary person who does not build computers and make, artificial intelligence for a living. So with this idea, it comes down to, we have the ability to make a tool that can help us comb through all of the World Wide Web, all social media, all of the online everything. And we can use it to see how widely circulated our hashtags are, hashtag CalExit, California Independence Movement, Yes California, all of that. We can take that information and use it to, one, weed out the things that don't work or maybe just aren't working so well. Could also, you know, if it's not working so well, we can use that to refine it, which comes down to refining the message, which is kind of the broad spectrum of the whole idea anyway. We could also use this information as a means to figure out how to better reach out to those who maybe aren't really they're not really receiving our message, not because it's falling on deaf ears, but because with Google, like, I'll use myself as an example. I watch a lot of cooking stuff because I'm a professional chef. I watch a lot of video game stuff because I'm a YouTube gamer as well. When it recommends stuff for me, it recommends lots of food and lots of video games. Not so much, you know, political stuff, or, you know, I do get a lot of Scotland political stuff because Google sees that I'm so interested in it. So for those who don't go out of their way to look for CalExit or for independence in general, the chances that they will be seeing this sort of stuff, the chances that Google or any other, you know, search engine analytical company would feed them this sort of stuff as, you know, hey, maybe you're interested, it's pretty slim chance. So with these tools, we can touch up everything that needs to be touched up, extend our reach, and be able to better monitor the callback. You know, when you send out sonar signal, it pings back. And so we will be sending out the signal and it bounces back to us and lets us know, is this being received well? Is it not being received well? Is it not being received at all? Right? These are kind of the basics to it. There's a lot of really finite detail as far as the different options. There's the Google Analytics option, which is kind of the basic, you know, most basic version, where you're basically creating an algorithm that's going to use Google and search through Google, which is pretty effective in its own right. Okay, halfway there. There are other options, such as AI, artificial intelligent program, right? It basically is just a program that you make, that when you make it in a way so that it knows there are random randomizations. At any given time, there can be an unknown of any kind. Now, for us humans, like, our brains handle that fairly well, and, you know, we go into our critical thinking mode. With an AI, it's actually a lot different, and it's a little bit harder because they don't have the emotional capacity to say, oh, well, you know, this is a clickbait, right? So with the AI, one of the things that can be done is you can program it to, you know, when it opens, it sees a tag on an article and says, okay, this falls into our category, and it opens it and combs through it, and it catches all these different keywords. Now, if we do it in a certain way, it could tell us, oh, it's got all of these keywords, which are used by Fox and Breitbart pretty exclusively. And that would tell us, well, it's probably clickbait, right? Not really a guarantee. It's just that this would take like probably 90 to 95% of the online combing and, you know, using the brain to try to think of, you know, well, where are they going with this? Or, you know, trying to analyze it so you know how to react or which reactions to expect coming back, right? These types of programs, they can help cut out a lot of that tedium. And then where the money, the fundraising part comes in is that once this has all been built, these programs could be repurposed. They could be intellectual property of the organization, and the organization could then lease the usage of it to other companies, organizations, thereby bringing funds that could then be used to, say, you know, have a massive volunteer drive or something. And that was the last main point. I know I'm running close to the time. The last main point is that since we don't have any funding to like really get this off the ground, it's all going to come down to starting it off with volunteers. And one of the things that DeWonk and I have discussed is using our capacity on this to help other CalExit missions or campaigns, such as Farhad Khorsani's Iranian Californian outreach campaign. We could theoretically work together with him on that and use this type of a tool to help him better refine his message and see, you know, how well it's being received, all of that. So I think that's about it.
Jason, I have a couple questions. So with the development of the AI, so in the future, could it possibly become interactive to get more signers and get more people talking? Possibly, just like, I know bots, we always have a negative connotation with, but if it's like on a Reddit thread or something, and it just gets people talking. And then also for funding, what about signing up for Patreon?
So first one, yeah, that is actually a great point. Before you said the charged B word there, I actually had thought that same word, but because yeah, that is exactly where it can go. Having, you know, an artificial bot that shows up just like they have in Discord and John has over in Gilded. You know, a bot that says, hey, welcome, type in, you know, your skill sets and we'll send you to where you need to go, you know, stuff like that. Yeah, it could be used probably to some really good effects being put in with bot type structure. That might take a little more work. Something tells me DeWonk, being so technically gifted, he could probably do that. So next time I chat with him, probably in the next day or two, I will definitely bring that up to him. That is a really awesome point. For the Patreon, I'm not entirely sure how the AI analytical processing thing might go about. I mean, I know you could start a project and have people pay into it. It is a possibility. I haven't actually really considered that. I hadn't thought about it yet. So that's another great point to bring up that I will definitely look into. And again, I will present that to DeLonc when I speak with him about it.
Hey, Jason, remember, I've already got a Patreon page, so I've already done some research. You can always ask me.
Any other questions for Jason on this program?
Hey, Jason, I have a question.
Yes, Nicholas.
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
All right. I wanted to ask, what's the bottom line cost to get this developed, and how soon can it be created, I guess?
Well, that's I love all these awesome questions. So we didn't actually talk about a baseline cost. We did talk about funding and fundraising, and he did mention the hardware. He has most of the software because he's a software engineer student. So he already has a lot of that, which is some of the more expensive part of it. It sounds like the hardware, the computer to be able to actually put all that together might be the one thing that's like really needed. I did ask him, I made it clear we don't really have funds for Yes California as of yet. We had to like fundraise for the $2,000 to file the initiative. And then I asked him, is there any way we could do it for free, you know? And he said yes. And that's when we started talking about volunteers, and it's, I think, mainly going to come down to any CalExit minded folk who are techie, and like techie of my level or higher, right? Like, because I'm not the techiest person. Pardon the noise. I'm not the techiest person, but if there are people who are interested in the movement, who are very technically gifted, if they would volunteer their time, this could be up and running probably within just a couple of months.
Wow.
And then again, for the funds, like if we could get it up within a couple of months on a volunteer zero expenditure basis, we could theoretically, if it proves effective, could theoretically start leasing it out at that point, and then would be able to
Generate funds.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Let's put the word out there and get you some help.
Yeah, right on.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Nick, Christine, Lewis, Darren, Stephen, CE, John, Jeremy, Robert, Cambies, Sam, about AI machine learning. Quick questions, and then we're going to move on.
I was gonna say, someone mentioned Catch a Fire. That's a good one. I was gonna say if it's got some revenue generating potential, this is a good thing for Kickstarter or Indiegogo, but especially something like that. And then you could actually lead you into called Subpart D fundraising if you really want to go and because there's a lot of liberalization on actually raising equity funds from equities. But I think Kickstarter, but also I think it would also be a good thing for Kickstarter, but also because it would give you a chance to sit down, write down, exactly explain what is it you want to do. Because that's always the first part of a project, right? Finding it.
Christine, Catch a Fire is a volunteer organization that links projects with volunteers.
Right.
Catch a Fire.
Right.
Yeah, on my LinkedIn for my freelance work, I've gotten a lot of hits for that organization, and they actually vet the projects before they send it out. So it's pretty safe, in my opinion, for linking volunteers for projects.
I'm just suggesting though that you might want to focus on that rather than start the project. You might first focus on defining it better or fully, putting it in words basically, so that everyone can understand it, and that would be a good exercise to engage in, I think.
Yeah, and if I may, there was one thing that DeWonk had wanted me to speak on. He wanted to make it clear that Brexit is an amazing example for this project, in that originally when Brexit started, it was not doing so well. Nigel Farage was the Prime Minister of England at that point, and he had even made a public statement to the effect that should Brexit fail, they will continue to push for it yearly, right? Meaning they did not see themselves winning at that point. They then started using analytical tools like this and started to use them in a way that influenced the web flow, so that now all of a sudden Brexit is the most popular term. Now all of a sudden Brexit is getting talked about all around the world. So
let me jump in.
That's the vision for CalExit.
Let me jump in real quick. Matt has a question. We're going to take 2 more questions on this and we're going to move on. But before we do, we actually have somebody who was part of Brexit, Christian Eglishaw. Christian, could you speak a little bit about data analytics and how it boosted Brexit into outstanding success? Just real quick.
Well, it was actually a group of your lot that came over to the UK and really helped with it. The same group that got in all that trouble with the Donald Trump election. Largely, I think one of the biggest influences of the data that they managed to use towards getting Brexit over the line was they were able to find thousands and thousands of voters that had previously never been hit up before at all. And there will be large parts of California that's never had any political candidate knock on their door, never received a leaflet. And what this data was able to do is find those people who were politically engaged and just send the message out to them over and over again. I think it was Elliot, what's his name? Elliot, who was actually one of the directors for the Vote Leave campaign, went and knocked on all these doors, and they'd never even heard of any of the candidates in their local area, never been asked to vote. They managed to get all these guys registered, send out the political messages to them, and that's essentially what got them over the line. It was Cambridge Analytica who came to them and said, we've got 200,000 voters that the other side have never heard of. And that's one of the greatest uses of this kind of technology, is finding where these voters are that will make the biggest difference, who've never been involved in it before.
Okay, thank you. Other questions on data analytics for Jason, and then we're going to move on. Any other questions for Jason? Okay, Matt, you had a question real quick?
Basically that, when you're harnessing the inference engine, the artificial intelligence of these bots, the nice thing is that unlike, some of the organic intelligences that one might tap, the AIs, they accept payment in Bitcoin.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. Okay, moving on. Thank you, Matthew. Cambies, what's up? Thanks for joining in. Robert, thanks for coming in. And 156-222-55454. Love you. Okay, we're going to move on to, and this actually Lewis is here, so that's great. So the next idea, I've talked to Alistair Caithness. Alistair Caithness has been the Yes California Bitcoin cryptocurrency expert. He does fundraising in the numbers of about 800,000 a year. No, he doesn't have the money, but he fundraises that for venture capital and Bitcoin. He and Farhad is a practicing lawyer here in California, made the same suggestion, and they didn't talk to each other before. So when I have somebody who works with $800,000 a year in venture capital and getting money, and I have a professional lawyer who does international law, and they both make the same suggestion independent of each other, I'm listening. And what they both said is, look, you got to fundraise. And I go, I'm horrible at fundraising. That's all right. That's all right. So what you need to do is you need to form a corporation that will legally insulate you. That'll be the Yes California Corporation or something like that. That corporation, yeah, Lewis, I'm going to go to you, Lewis, right after this, is going to file the 501c4 paperwork to be a political action committee. So you form a corporation, you're legally incorporated, you're insulated. That corporation then files the paperwork to become a political party. Even if you're not sure you're going to become a political party, you're now able to take donations. Camby's, I'm sorry, not Camby's, Alistair. I don't know if I said that. I think Camby's and Caithness sound similar. Sorry. I understand one's Iranian, one's Scottish, very different parts of the world. Sorry. Very California, though. I get confused. Anyways, they said, look, people are used to donating to parties. People are used to fundraising for that. So if you have all the paperwork done and you're about a political party, Alistair was like, dude, I can get money. You have the brand. If you do the paperwork the right way, that's all I need. Hey, I filed the paperwork right. This is totally kosher, totally cool, all good. And he's like, I can get you the money. You'll pay me a fee, a fraction of the money that I raise. And I said, that's fine, because if I don't have a dollar, what do I care if I gave you 25 cents or nothing? And then Farhad said the same thing. Now, I also ran that by Mitchell Beecher. Mitchell Beecher, if you know him, is one of the brightest people in the movement, essentially a super genius. But he's a hippie. So, it's kind of hard to get him focused on a project. I love you, Mitchell. You know I'm telling the truth. He said, yeah, that's a good idea and would work. Then Don Sutton. Don Sutton deals with about $1, $2, $3 million in real estate every year. And he goes, yeah, that would work too. So I'd like to have a discussion. And I'd like to ask Lewis first, not saying we're doing this, but just the possibilities. Incorporate, file as a political party, have that as a fundraising vehicle, have a lawyer and a professional fundraiser help make this happen. Is it possible at all? And what would be the side effects of that? Lewis Marinelli first.
Well, I don't have any objections to it. I just would point out that any kind of formalization of the organization in terms of corporate corporatization or anything like that is going to require you to have bylaws and require you to do certain kind of statements for filing, taxes or filing for donations and things of that nature. So, I mean, of course, in order to pursue the objectives of the organization, you need to have all of those formalities, but you just make sure that you have people who are prepared to fill in particular roles, such as treasurer. That person is going to be the one legally responsible for any donations taken in and any errors in accounting and things of that nature. So I would just point out that be prepared to have people that can do that and are willing to take on that responsibility and be held accountable for the problems that may arise if something doesn't get accounted for the right way. It's political in nature, so you're going to have people automatically from the get-go looking for any mistakes that can be made, filing reports, deadlines, things of that nature. So there's a lot of, I think, technicalities that you're going to be opening a whole can of worms, basically. Of course, it's nothing that needs to be done. You're not going to be able to raise funds without doing that. People are not going to just give large amounts of money to just this, this club, this treehouse club of people who support California independence. But if you do have an incorporated entity, then people are comfortable donating into it because they know that it's legitimate and that you're held accountable. But then that means that you have to be accountable. So you need to have the officers, like amongst your members of the board of directors. You'd have to have people fill in particular roles. There'd have to be someone like a secretary to take the minutes of the meetings, and you'd have to have votes, and each person has a certain number of votes or whatever like that. The elections, and you'd have, there's a lot of things that are going to come about from doing that. So I would just point out that you should be prepared to do that. But you said you have a lawyer, so that I'm sure that lawyer may be able to help you weave through that process.
So it's hardcore, serious paperwork. You can't make mistakes, people are going to be coming and try to pull you apart on that paperwork. And as long as you make sure they get that straight, it should be okay. Is that a roughly fair summary? Is that okay?
Well, yes, I think so, because if you're talking about raising substantial amounts of funds, which it sounds like you'd be doing if someone's going to be taking 25% of the fee, which is, I think, expected, that means that people are going to start taking the group more seriously, and there's going to be a perceived threat, and therefore people who don't agree with you, which are numerous, we already have people like that who are trying to find, they demand us to publicize certain things on the internet and stuff like that. I mean, they're already doing that. So imagine now you have, the Newsom regime trying to, requiring you to have certain financial statements on certain days. Who's going to be the person responsible for that? Things like that. So I don't know. I would just keep in mind that we pursued this general idea before, when we had certain officers and treasurers and bank accounts. Who's going to open a bank account, by the way? Who's going to have access to that kind of stuff? You're going to have to, if you have a bank account for the organization, don't forget that you're going to ultimately have, as I would imagine, some kind of vote system on how the funds are used, or some kind of process to determine how your donations are spent. So, I mean, there's just a lot of different intricate issues that are going to come up, and that's going to all be laid out in the bylaws. So as a corporation, you automatically need to have bylaws. I know that I helped you write the bylaws for when we had Sovereign California Incorporated back in 2014, which is our first organization. I don't know if everyone on the line knew that Yes California started as a group called Sovereign California, and we changed that name because people thought either at our rallies, people thought we were some kind of religious group, thinking, like sovereign as in the sovereign, like the Lord God or something like that. And also people related us to something like the sovereign citizens movement, which is like against the government, basically, of any kind. So we changed the name because we were running into people who thought either extreme religion or extreme anarchy, and so we became Yes California. At the same time, we were also being inspired by the Yes Scotland campaign, so they kind of just came into play. But we did start off as a corporation. We had those issues. We had a treasurer. We had a bank account. We wrote the bylaws, and then we kind of, changed course into a political action committee, and then we created the California National Party, and we wrote the bylaws and the original platform for the California National Party, and then they went off and did their own thing, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, our organization, Yes California, we've pursued multiple different paths, is what the idea is that I'm trying to project here. We've pursued multiple different paths, from corporation, political party, political action committee, right now like an online community of activists. So if you go back into that direction of a corporation, I would be concerned with making sure that you have all your, as you say, T's crossed and I's dotted, because there's going to be people looking for those mistakes.
Understood. But I would point out that you just said Sovereign California did it. So I understand Yes didn't, but at one point Sovereign California was incorporated, was 501c3, did take the money, and did properly account. Now, I understand there's hijinks afterwards, but we did pull it off. And you're right, I get it. There's going to be a giant target on our back. Day one. Understood. Let's get a couple more comments. I agree with everything Lewis is saying. Anybody else? What should we watch out for? Is this a bad idea? Is this a good idea? Be relatively quick with your comments, but I want to open up to anybody else. What are we missing? What should we watch out? Please unmute yourself and jump in. Any comments?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think people are more likely to, a political party grabs your attention more than if it's just organization. Have you discussed running a slate of candidates in 2022, or that's a bit too soon?
We haven't thought that far out, brother, but that's something we could do.
Well, actually, Marcus, we spoke about the idea of running a candidate in the Fresno, because you live there. for either, because there's a I forget if it's a Senate, I think it's a state Senate seat, and the border between those two districts runs through the city of Fresno. I believe that one of them is held by a Republican, the one that's more rural on the mountainside, and the other one is by a Democrat. I don't personally know their names because I'm not from Fresno, but you do, I'm sure. I think that one of those seats is up for re-election in 2022, and the other one in 2024, the guy that occupies it now will be termed out, so there'll be an open seat, and I think that's the Republican. I think it's Anderson or something like that. But I think that one of those seats is going to be termed out in 2024. So we were talking about this a couple months ago, running a candidate, because you're there physically, so you'd be able to, I don't know if necessarily that Marcus would be the candidate, but he would at least be there to physically help get the candidate qualified. Because you know that Marcus and I worked in San Diego to get me qualified for the state assembly seat back in 2016. That was hard work because we didn't have we weren't running as a Democrat, we were running as a no political affiliation candidate. And we had to get the people to sign the petition in lieu of the filing fee. And that was difficult to go door to door and get all those signatures and then have them be, what would they say, I guess, verified by the county board of elections as real signatures or something like that. So we turned in signatures and some of them were rejected and we had to go back. So anyway, it's a long process. But anyway, that's why me and Marcus were talking about the idea of finding a candidate at least somewhere near where Marcus is, because he's the one who could, you know, be there physically to help do that. And so if there are any other potentially candidates that are term limited in the next 2 years, that's also something to look into. I would start at their point and find those districts where you have career politicians who are term limited and they're going to be leaving that position. That leaves an open seat. There's a better chance of winning an open seat than winning against an incumbent.
So the idea is that, yes, California could, as it's becoming incorporated, as it's becoming a political party, have a couple people run for office, and we would back you as a way of raising publicity and generating funds. Am I roughly getting that correct?
Yeah, if you're talking to me, I would say yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Other comments, questions on incorporating? If you could mute yourself, if you're not going to speak.
I wanted to add,
yeah, Nicholas.
Yeah. Well, even though I'm not running as an official candidate for Yes California, I am a candidate running for governor of California. I've already declared my candidacy and plan on running in 2022. And even though, of course, we're pushing for the recall here in California, if it happens to be successful, hopefully I'll be able to be on that recall ballot. But as a candidate, I'm going to have the opportunity to be heard by a larger audience, and I'll be advocating for Yes California. And that's actually what I've been doing in my community effort to collect signatures to recall Gavin Newsom, is also introduce those people that do end up signing to the idea of Yes California by having them sign the petition as well. So it's kind of like a twofer, so to speak, an opportunity to introduce both of these ideas to them, as well as myself, as I said, because then I ended with introducing myself as a candidate for governor myself. So anyone that's interested, of course, visit my website, wildstar2022.com. But as I said, if I were to get elected, my goal would be to bring about the desires of Yes California to fruition.
Hey, Marcus, this is Don.
Yeah, we're going to, yes, Don, 1 second. We're going to talk about recall debate here in a second, Nick. Don, comments on incorporating and registering as a political party to raise funds?
Yeah, the fact of the matter is back on topic, which is regarding to just filing the paperwork. It's not as hard as it sounds. It's just really just making sure your T's are crossed and I's are dotted, because I've done it several times. the other thing is too, they will be scrutinized to make sure that all the people that are on the board or who are our officers are actually located in California. So that needs to be taken in consideration. And I think the idea of setting up a political party is actually a great idea, because if we had a whole bunch of candidates running at the same time, we would get a lot more press attention as a legitimate organization in the long run.
Any other ideas, Don? You have a lot of marketing experience.
Marcus,
we'll get other. I'm sorry, Lewis.
Yeah, I just liked what he said. I just wanted to point out that you know, we only ever had one attempt at running a candidate, but like he just said, even if you had 10 people in your party, but they were all running for office in 10 different districts, that would gain much more attention than one person running for office, and if you had 500 people in your party. Because I think that the California National Party, for example, has several hundred members, so to speak, but they don't run any candidates, so therefore there's not really any attention there. But if there was even 5 members in your political party, you had all 5 running for office, that's much more attention grabbing, and so you'd get more attention. So I like the idea as well of a political party, and then no matter how many people you have, if they just throw themselves in the ring and there's a statewide effort, I mean, it's going to attract attention. And look at this fledgling new political party that's throwing out 5, 6 candidates. By the way, there's 5 or 6 members. It's kind of funny, but it gains attention, and therefore, of course, you'd have more than that, because we have access to media. We have a massive email list. We have the Facebook and the Twitter and name recognition. So we would have more than that. But the idea is that if you did start a political party and you just started throwing out candidates and offices across the state, and it seemed like an organized effort, even though it's not a qualified political party until it receives a certain number of registrations and so on and so forth, just to have those people out there running for office, I think would be very attention grabbing.
I'll run for office if it helps get it going, and I can at least be decent. Any other comments on this? I want to get Don, do you have any thoughts about what Lewis said, or any other comments about how we can make this happen?
I think the biggest issue would be you've got to sell it to a Valerie voter in Irvine with 2 kids and a husband who's got a small business. And everything needs to be geared towards being able to have her say yes to the whole idea within less than 30 seconds, which means it has to, keep it simple, stupid. Running a bunch of political candidates all saying the same thing would be a big help, actually. A lot of it is just, as soon as we get the paperwork going, we got to just stay focused, and has to be no more than 5 selling points is why we need to be independent, and it has to be less than 5 to 10 words each line, and that's it. Otherwise, Valerie voter is not going to buy into it and turn off automatically.
You're saying we need to focus on an archetypal voter and, a mainstream California voter, and our entire messaging needs to be geared to that particular profile.
Yeah, you need to have some punchlines, like he's saying, punchlines, because most people are not political. They're not going to sit there and listen to long-winded explanations about taxes and budgets and so on and so forth. So you need to have 5 punchlines that hit them where it hurts, or their pocketbooks, things that matter to them, I guess. Not where it hurts, I guess not the right terminology for that, but hit them at heart. So it's kind of funny. When I hit you where it hurts, but you get what I'm trying to say. 5 punchlines.
Yeah. But the thing is Valerie voter is the one who's going to make our case. It's not going to be us. And if you make this too complicated, bring in a bunch of historical things and they try to explain everything, their eyes are going to glaze over, and I don't want to pay attention to these clowns. It's got to keep it simple, stupid. That's the only way this is going to succeed.
So with millennials and younger generations, they have a goldfish memory. So you need to hit them within 2 seconds as far as doing social media and online messaging.
Any other comments about forming a political party?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I think that running a have candidates like what we talked about there with, political party, even if there's only 10 people in it and all 10 of them are running in various seats, positions, races, that's huge. That's us controlling the narrative. And as Lewis said, we've already got a lot of access to like media and whatnot, but that would actually increase our access like even more.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jason, imagine if there was how many assembly districts are there? 80, right? So imagine just for the sake of the discussion, if there were 80 candidates running in each assembly district, even if they had no chance of winning in particular districts because of the demographics, it would show coordinated statewide effort to get secession-friendly candidates elected to office. So, like when I ran, and it wasn't because I was going to defeat Lorena Gonzalez in District 80. It's impossible, considering the demographics there. Especially when I refused to run as a Democrat for my own reasons. But the fact is, I got my name on the ballot, and my name was listed with the subtitle "California Independence Separatist" or something like that. So that's on the history of the California election history. Is that there is a California secessionist, what would we say, leader or something like that, advisor, on the ballot. And so if that was on every ballot, on all the 80 districts, that would be a statewide coordinated effort that has never been seen before.
I see you, Hannah. We're going to go to Matt, then I'm going to go to Hannah, and then we're going to move on. We have half an hour, so Matt, then Hannah. And yes, when Lewis did that, we made news. He got in the LA Times half-page article because it was the first time in California history a secession advocate was listed on the ballot. Big news, just pulling it off.
Yeah, they called me the bear flagger, and so that was, if there were 80 bear flagger candidates, that would just be historic, just for the principle of it.
Okay, Matt, then Hannah.
Well, the beautiful thing about California is that we have so many markets to choose from. Somewhere in Irvine might have a specific market that gives a specific impression. Kudos for being tailor-made to that. I work a bit of a different market, as you know. I'm Peace and Freedom since 1992. They are, in fact, a ballot qualified party and have been since 1968. Doesn't mean they get many candidates elected, but I'll tell you what, if CalExit is picking up in popularity and you got a candidate with PFP who is also vocally pro-independence, guess what? Vocally pro-independence candidate is running from a ballot qualified party. So you have all kinds of different markets to which you can appeal. On corporations, it makes a difference where you incorporate. If you're incorporating California, you've got to follow California regulations and all that sort of thing. You have to have a separate CAO and CFO, that kind of thing. Whereas if you were to incorporate in some place like Delaware, Nevada, Liechtenstein, whatever, you can do all kinds of crazy things. We should
incorporate in Delaware, just to point out that Biden is from Delaware. Look what he's done there for the lax regulations of corporations. People in California won't like that because they like regulation nation, but it just will send a nice little stinger towards the Biden direction. That's my personal opinion. Doesn't represent the opinion of the board of Yes California.
Another segment. And a lot of the opinions I express are not Yes California, especially either. But no, it matters where you incorporate. You can go to a place where Corporation B, being an artificial person, can be an officer in Corporation A. That sort of arcane thing. And as far as financing, you don't necessarily have to limit your acceptance of what you get paid in to US dollars by any means. You could accept Bitcoin. Once you accept Bitcoin, you're expanding the ambit of Bitcoin and driving the value of Bitcoins up, which is what you just accepted payment in. So you got all kinds of options, all kinds.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to Hannah. One last question, then we're moving on.
Well, I just want to suggest that you go and join the Peace and Freedom Party if you don't want to be a Democrat, because it's the third large. I think that from what I would argue, that's the third largest party in California. They've got 80,
Oh, definitely.
90,000 registered voters. And if your views have got any validity, I think you'd want to start by trying to convince those people. Anyways, and also in a lot of districts, probably there's no other candidate running in such a party like that. And so, couple of clicks on a mouse and you should figure out everything you need to know to become a Peace and Freedom Party candidate. I might like point out that in 2012, I just checked on Wikipedia, Roseanne Barr and Cindy Sheehan were the presidential and vice presidential candidates for the Peace and Freedom Party. So there is, so I think probably Cindy probably could tell you all you want to know about PNF. But I like to point out that they actually came in second. They actually got into the primary in 3 congressional districts in 2018.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that party is actually viable, and I think you should go and join that group. I think
We got 30 minutes to cover 7 more topics.
that's all I want to say.
putting that out.
PNF. That's I joined that.
I
Maybe I know
like
some of the people are far right and they won't like it.
Peace and Freedom Party. We've spoken with them back during the campaign. They have a lot of points that kind of meld with our campaign issues at Yes California. So we were in touch with some people in the District 80 campaign. We just never really joined them officially or got their endorsement. We were looking at the time, it might be a flawed approach, but we were looking at the time of the fact that the fastest growing number of, I guess, demographic of voters were the non-affiliated voters. And so therefore we were, running as a non-affiliated candidate. It would have been smarter strategically in hindsight to register as Democrat, because then it would have been, because of the jungle primary, Democrat versus Democrat in the election. And District 80 is a very strongly heavy Democratic district. But we didn't do that. We made that mistake. We should have had somebody run as a Democrat, and that the Republican would have been kicked out.
Let's get back to our agenda. We're running out of time.
Thank you. Thank you, Lewis. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, everybody. Excellent points. I just want to make sure we hit every topic. So let's move on to the next one. Appreciate everybody. Real quick, we have polling data from Jeremy Zogby. Let me see if I can share my screen. Let me pull this up real quick. Sorry.
Marcus, I can share on my end because I have something specific.
Okay, Jeremy, 5 minutes, brother. Show us what you got.
All right. So
Jeremy Zogby of Zogby Polling.
Good to see everybody again. Marcus, I swear every time I talk with you, like within a week, our work on secession shows up somewhere in the independent media.
What's that mean? It's almost like we're calling the trend that's going a certain way. Huh.
Obviously, people start talking about it and it spreads. But this week, it was our 2018 poll on secession was featured on the Mises Institute. Anyway, I already presented last week, but I want to just go over that again. By the way, just real quick, I know there's a cloud over polling, but I'm really proud to say that Zogby Strategies were among 3 polling firms that I'm aware of, Trafalgar, TIPP, and Zogby Strategies, that had the popular vote, the 2020 election, a lot more tight than pretty much everyone else. So, with that out of the way, I'm going to get this up here. Give me 1 second. All right, I'm going to share my screen and I'm just going to wait for everyone. Marcus, can you see?
Yes.
Okay. So this is my intelligence report called the Main Street K Street Intelligence. Here, basically, I dub it as polling beyond 2-dimensional. All the issues are free, so feel free to go there. I'll leave the link, but I want to focus on this issue right here, issue 4. That was the July poll that I referenced. After the statues fall, what comes next? I'm going to go directly to the topic of, this might be of interest to you. Which level of government do you trust? But we're going to go to secession because of time. And so let's see here. This is a slightly different question, actually, than what I presented last week. In 5 to 10 years, do you expect that all 50 states will remain united under the Constitution, or that one or more states will secede. Again, this was July of 2020 during all of the madness of the summer. And we have here that overall 24% think that in 5 to 10 years. Now, this is different from what we asked or what I showed last week when we were asking, do you believe in the right? Do you believe a state has the right? Now we're saying, what do you think will happen? Nearly a quarter of likely voters believe that this is likely to happen in 5 to 10 years. If you go out west, it's about the same. A little bit of an uptick in the south. But look, from the east to the south, to the central Great Lakes states and the western states, you've got about on average a quarter of people that think this is going to happen. I call this there are a few laws in history, if any, but I call this the law of ever-changing boundaries. Just look at a map of, I don't know, Europe in any century over the last several hundred years, and you isolate it to 50 or 100 years, they're constantly the boundaries are constantly in movement. Why should we expect that we are any different? Last week, I showed you how in the western states, 44% of likely voters in western states agreed with the right to secession. Now, I couldn't really drill down into California, but if I assume that 44% in western states is going to be the same in California, which I personally have every reason to believe it wouldn't sway from the overall of western states. So let's run with this. 44% of Californians hypothetically believe in, based on the western states, 44% believe in the right to secede. My understanding is in the 2020 election, there were about 17 million voters. So if I take that 17 million voters from the 2020 election and I apply the 44% who believe in the right to secede, that gives me about 7.6 million voters. Now, the next question is, so that's the belief. If there ever were the case where there was a referendum on partition, secession, independence, whatever you want to call it, if you just said, well, 10%, just conservatively take 10% of those 7.6 million who believe in the right to secession, if that's 10% that would actually vote for the referendum, that's 760,000 Californians. This is a hypothetical scenario. This is an assumption, but it goes back to my point when I said I have reason to believe that there are potentially hundreds of thousands, if not a couple million. That's how I derived at that number. The one last thing I'm going to say, because I just want to keep it short, is somewhere along the lines, we were just talking about the notion of what would an archetypal voter be, for Yes California. I'm currently, again, this is the Main Street, K Street intelligence here. The next one I'm going to be putting out is going to be based on some research in an upcoming nationwide poll. I'm going to explore in my polling the theme of common ground between, let's say, millennial libertarians on the right, and millennial Bernie Sanders voters. Now, you're going to think, whoa, you're crazy. How could those two camps possibly have any common ground? I would say that a large chunk of Bernie millennials and a large chunk, if not all, of millennial right-wing libertarians agree on three things. They are anti-war, they're anti-establishment, and they are anti-corporation, multinational corporation. There's other things too that I think they converge on: the environment, the right to privacy. So if you take those 3, 4, 5 core issues, I believe that I will find common ground, overlap between those two camps. Maybe that's the answer to your question.
I'm going to push the meeting a little bit long, but Jeremy Zogby of Zogby Polling, studying the topic of secession based upon current data. Lewis, do you have any questions? You first, and then we're going to go around the screen. Jeremy, if you could give me back my screen.
Yep.
Okay. Questions for Jeremy Zogby on this poll, and then we're going to go to a recall debate discussion.
Let me just throw in there real quick. Thank you, Jeremy. Great analysis. Loved it. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
I'd like to
Questions
know
for
how
Zogby
many
Polling?
people were polled in the poll that you just showed us in the
Yeah,
graphic.
that was a nationwide survey of 1,000 likely voters, which is standard. It was an online survey, and the margin of error for 1,000 likely voters is plus or minus 3.2 percentage points.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Hannah had a
Yeah,
question, and then Rabbi Axelman.
Jeremy, great work, and just so you know, I have a master's in sociology, so I'm not going to give you any stick about polling. And so the question I have is, with the election of Joe Biden, that's my analysis, frankly, and some other people, my other colleagues, is that we're going to be in a certain interregnum where a lot of liberals are going to be sitting around and progressives are going to be sitting around waiting to see what happens, basically. Is it going to be allowed to govern? Is it going to be allowed? Fundamentally, is there going to be the ability to fulfill, a fraction of the promises that were made and make the reforms that people voted for? So, do you think that because right now, after all, so far the only people I see really openly supporting secession would be, or what are breaking up the USA, where of course like the Wyoming Republican Party and the Texas Republican Party. So how do you see that yourself, and what kind of horizon is it? Are we down to questions like is Schumer going to allow the filibuster to be scrapped or something like that?
Yeah, well, there's also the Middlebury Institute in New Hampshire. Kirkpatrick Sale, very fascinating guy. And there's more movements popping up. Remember what happened before COVID between West Virginia and Virginia, where you had those counties that were West Virginia offered certain counties in Virginia to come on over into West Virginia over the Second Amendment. So, this is popping up all over the place. It's also in Colorado. It's been there for a while, the notion of a partition in Colorado. I don't see this going anywhere. I don't see it going away. I go back to what I've coined the law of ever-changing borders. Again, why is America so special that, when was the last time our boundaries changed? In 1906? That it's going to remain from here on out, with the introduction to whatever it was when we introduced Hawaii and Alaska. But
that
anyway,
would be 98,
what's that?
1898. 1898, in case you're wondering.
1898. So, yeah, come on, right? Look at every other nation. Borders are constantly in flux. Your question about Schumer and filibustering, I don't have enough data yet, but on the bird's eye view, looking way up into the sky, I believe that the Democratic Party most people don't realize it, but I think it's fracturing. And if you go to, oh boy, I just read it last night. It was a statement from, I don't know if it was the Civil Liberties Union, but it was one of the biggest national organizations on civil rights and human rights. And they came out blasting Biden and the Democratic Party. Don't go down that road of domestic terrorism legislation targeting right-wing ideology. That's taken us back to 2001 after September 11th, which because I'm of Lebanese descent, had some really scary moments. And my family being targeted, our family being targeted. Don't go down that road. So the fact that you've got civil rights and human rights organizations coming out and saying that's wrong, I don't see how Biden, by the way, takes his foot off the gas after using that kind of language. That shows me that there's some serious fractures and cracks in the Democratic Party.
Any other questions for Zogby Polling? Any questions for Zogby Polling?
I guess I still kind of want to ask my question, though. About if you could answer the question: Are we going to? You think there's like this disenchantment is set in already? Because to me, it's not about. First, I might point out to you that I agree with you. One thing about that, I'm on the ACO mailing list too, and I think that the real point they probably would make is that we don't need new laws, but Congress will pay us new laws just to look like they're doing something about a situation like a mass insurrection upon the United States Capitol. That's what, but in fact, we already have plenty of laws. Those people in DC broke all kinds of laws, and they're getting prosecuted as we speak without a
Okay.
single change in the
Okay.
law. But the question I really want him to, if you
Please.
could try to answer the question of, the bigger question of, you think what do you think the timeline is on this disenchantment if it occurs between, with the Biden team?
Well, I mean, every president has a honeymoon, right? So we're
Within
in the
his own
honeymoon.
party.
Oh, within the Republican Party.
No, within his own party.
Within the Democratic Party. Look, it's a high right now. You can see it. The people are like, oh, we can breathe, we can exhale, we're liberated finally. But history shows that this stuff starts to happen within a few to maybe 6 months. I go back to Obama, the discontent with the bailout. I mean, that happened within the first 100 days, and then people were like, wait, hold on. This guy got the Nobel Peace Prize and he invaded Libya. So I can't say with definitive the timeline, but I would say give it a year. Now you're not going to find that in the mainstream media. That's the thing. You're going to have to. But I think to those who are independent minded, I think to those who are off to the fringes of the party, if you will, the Bernieites, they're already dissatisfied.
I want to go to Rabbi Axelman. Rabbi Axelman has been patient. Rabbi Axelman, you had a question for Zogby.
I just made a very quick comment for Jeremy when you were talking about common ground between libertarians and the others. I forget what you were calling them. I'm glad you mentioned New Hampshire. I'm not from New Hampshire. You see in my background, Liberty Block. Liberty Block is based in New Hampshire. I don't know what your connections are up there, but we have many, many, many. And you sound like you were describing an incredible percentage of the libertarian population in New Hampshire, where they're sometimes far more liberal than conservative. So if you want any information that you don't have, please get in touch with me and I'll put you in touch with my son because he has his finger on the pulse. Could be you've been there, know more about it than I do. That's fine.
I don't. I'm only familiar with Kirkpatrick Sale and the Middlebury Institute. I will definitely.
Okay, I'm talking about the real people there, the crazies, the Pork Fest people. So
okay,
I'll just
I'll put
shoot
you
you
in
my
touch.
email. Okay,
Please
thank
I'll
you,
make sure you get
Marcus.
the rabbi's email. Rabbi, I'll make sure
I'm
Jeremy
sending it
gets
to
your
him.
email.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah, sure.
Any other questions on Zogby polling before we move on? And the secession poll, you're talking to one of the top pollsters on the earth. I follow polls. Zogby has been one of the few that has not played games and been consistent. Any other questions? Okay, Jeremy, thanks for coming out. I'm going to send the PDF you sent me of the poll. I'll make sure everybody gets that.
Yep.
And we'll move forward. Thank you for coming. Okay, we're going to move on to.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to move on to Nick. Thanks, Jeremy. We're going to move on to Nicholas Wildstar. I'm sorry, Sam, you had a question? Okay. We're going to move on to Nicholas Wildstar. Nicholas, we're going to talk about the recall debate, but before we get into that, for just 2 minutes, not a big discussion, we have 200 plus faces on photographs from San Leandro, Long Beach, Santa Monica, Inland Empire, Fresno, Bakersfield, Sacramento, Grass Valley, Humboldt, and they're signing the Yes California, paid for by us, no other group sponsored it, CalExit initiative to study California becoming independent. Didn't it say it's going to make it independent? It says we're studying the idea. Nick, what is it that you tell people every single time, if you could repeat it as if we're just a random customer, what is it that you tell people every single time to get them to sign? If you could just repeat that phrase and then we'll go to the recall debate. Nicholas Wildstar.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Nicholas Wildstar. Running for governor of California, as I said. As I also pointed out, you see behind me, I have the Recall Gavin Newsom message. And that's what I've been actually using to engage with the community with. And it's a conversation starter. So, you know, with me being a petitioner, collecting signatures for that effort, I'm able to engage with them. But as I introduce them to Yes California, I just say, hey, while I have you here signing the petition to recall Gavin Newsom, Would you like to sign a petition to research California becoming its own independent state? You know, right now we're considered a donor state because we send off more money to the federal government opposed to keeping it here in the state and helping those in need. And more people than not sign that petition, which is why I've been able to collect so many, thankfully, for the Yes California effort. And that's what I'm actually just encouraging all of you to do. If you could print out the petition, you know, and circulate that and get that going, because what I found is it doesn't hurt to ask. And if I can just ask each and every person, even if they tell me no, at least I got their wheels spinning. You know, because some people, they'll look at me and they'll say, I'll think about that one because I haven't heard of it before. You know, they've heard about the recall because of, you know, it being a hot topic issue here in California. But as I said, the more attention that you can bring to CalExit and, you know, the Yes California movement, the more people will be inspired to find out more about the benefits of it. And that's also another thing that I let them know. This is just to research it, find out what would be the benefits of it, what would be the steps about making that happen, and of course, you know, giving it to voters to make it happen, to vote to make it happen. And a lot of people don't seem so struck by that idea, especially when you just let them know this is to just research California independence. So you'll get more people inclined to sign if you just ask them and just say it in proper framing such as that.
I need to point out a couple things. I've been with Nick for a lot of these. He goes, hey, recall Newsom. Some people like that. Some people hate that. Some people who hated the recall Newsom, he goes, well, I got this other petition, and they signed that. So it's not like, oh, I liked recall Newsom and therefore I liked CalExit. They were never presented as a package deal. They were always presented as separate topics. Some people were disgusted that, I mean, I saw some very rough reactions to Mr. Wildstar from people who were not happy hearing about the recall.
Right.
And he would get them to sign the petition for CalExit. So when you're looking at those photos, don't look at it as like, oh, these are all recall people. No, they weren't. The other thing was that even when they hated Newsom, and even when they thought the California government was corrupt, Nick was still able to go, even when you're a skeptic of what we do here in California, you still think it'd be better if we kept our money here and ran it on our own. Oh yeah, totally. So he's gotten people who were the most skeptical of the California government, the most skeptical of the politicians, the most believing that they're corrupt, still saying, yeah, we're basically a nation and yeah, we should look into that.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of them hated the recall thing and still signed anyways. And we were in 20 different locations, 200 people, all, I think 20 photos out of 200 were before the election and 180 were after Biden won.
Right.
Nobody hated Biden. They just said, yeah, we should look into this. And he said, I'm not talking about we have to secede. I'm saying blah, 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 blah. Should we look into this about keeping our money here? Oh, yeah. And half the people would go, well, yeah, we're basically a nation anyways. It's sign and walk off. So keep that there. Know that we're pushing normative programming. We're showing people this message gets people there. We're just talking about a study.
Right.
We're just talking about looking into this. We're just talking about, can't we keep our tax money here? That gets people to stop what they're doing and sign better than anything I've seen. I've been in 8 different locations and watched about 300 people try to do this. So now I want to move on because we're coming into a little bit more. Let's go to the recall debate. Now I'm going to pass it over to Nick, but first, Yes, California is not endorsing the recall. Yes, California is committed to working with Californians from all backgrounds. Hold on, Louis. Can I have 2 seconds? To all backgrounds and working with conservatives, and we are dedicated to getting media. The fact is that yes, California predicted that the recall was going to go far, way before anybody else did, and we started making inroads. And that was when people thought it's not going anywhere, and then it just kept getting even bigger. So once again, yes, California correctly predicted the trajectory of politics. We're not taking a stance, but we are committed to hosting a debate with the recall candidates. We think that we can be one of the first and few people to do that. We think it will get us massive amounts of attention, and it will show that we're trying to reach out to conservatives while standing for California values. I'm going to go to Nick. Could you explain a little bit about the thinking? I think I framed it right. We're not saying we're hardcore Trump-loving Republicans. We're not doing that. We are reaching out to conservatives. I'll get into this a little bit more when I talk about the rabbi's questions about the direction of this. Nick, what's going on with the recall debate? Roughly, what is the plan, sir?
Absolutely. Well, you put it very well in as far as framing. This would definitely help catapult the attention to Yes California, because it is also a circulating petition right now to recall Gavin Newsom. The recall petition for Gavin Newsom has collected over 1.2 million signatures so far. These are valid signatures. They've been verified and are good to go. So we only need 1.5 million before March 17th to have it be successful. And it's looking like, with all of the publicity that it's been getting lately, that that's going to happen. And it's also been coming from the Democratic Party, which I forgot who said it, Jeremy, that infighting is and dissent is starting to bubble to the surface. I mean, the head of the Democratic Party tried to tie in the recall effort to the extremist movement, I guess, that was involved in the Capitol riot, and said that it was a hostile coup to overtake the government, when of course it's a peaceful effort. We're out there, collecting signatures from people of the community instead of running on the state capitol with weaponry, etc. So they pretty much brought more attention to the recall by saying such things. So like I said, it's a great conversation starter, but with that, we can tie in California's secession, because a lot of people are upset about the new administration taking over. They are upset about the Capitol riots. They are upset about federal taxation and regulation. So if you can kind of couple all of these things into issues that, of course, California voters do care about, which they do, their money, then it'll be a great way to engage more people into the California independence movement. So what I was speaking with Marcus about, as well as one of my campaign staffers, was getting all of the candidates that are declared to run for governor in the state of California in the recall, or basically, because if the recall is successful, they'll all be the first ones to garner attention as candidates, as potential replacements for Gavin Newsom. So if this happens in March, which we're at the end of January now, so February is going to fly by, March 17th is going to be here before you know it. If in that time we can schedule a debate with all of the declared candidates, then that'll give publicity to CalExit, because they'll be the first ones introducing these candidates before the recall is successful, which it will be on March 17th. So we can speak on hypotheticals, however we come up with the questions. I think we came up with like 5 general questions that could be asked of the candidates, but have it be a virtual one that's live. So viewers will be able to interact with candidates. They'll be able to ask questions. It'll be moderated by Yes California, as well as, I think, Tom Elliott, his name is.
Tom Elias.
Tom Elias.
I spoke to Tom Elias, and he's the reporter that got the 2003 recall going. He promised me that he would host this recall debate if we got all the candidates and we got some big names.
Right, exactly. So as far as big names is concerned and the candidates that have declared, there would be myself, I guess, because I was the 2018 Libertarian candidate for governor. You also have Adriel Hampton, who gained attention by exploiting Facebook's algorithm. And he was able to get national press because of that, as well as other candidates, like another candidate, a part of me, who is the or potential candidate, mayor of San Diego. Forgot his name.
Faulkner.
But yeah, right, Kevin Faulkner. So he hasn't declared yet. He's only put together an exploratory committee. But if in the event that he is declared within the next few weeks or so, we can reach out to him as well. So that's what we're doing, is basically sending out the invitation to all of the declared candidates to see if they'd be interested in being involved. And if we can get at least 3 or more, including myself, in the debate, then if we can get, Marcus, Yes California, the board, everyone to agree on it, Thomas Elias, and everyone to support it, then I think that would be a great way to bring more attention to Yes California.
All right, let's go to questions. Lewis, say whatever you want. You can critique the marketing angle we're doing. What do you think about this idea? You and I have been talking about this idea. I did my best to try to frame it so that I could bring Yes California along and reach out to conservatives while saying that, yes, we're still a California org. Thoughts, feelings, brother?
Well, not really. I mean, no, I don't have much to say. I would just point out as a point of order that through your permission, certain statements were made on certain social media networks that support the recall effort. It's just a fact. So it's too late to go back and say we don't support the recall effort if we were using the recall Newsom hashtag. It's on our Twitter. So there's that thing. We also are here quasi endorsing or supporting. I don't know the exact position of the campaign with Nicholas Wildstar, if he's running his dedicated cause to recall Gavin Newsom and we're supporting his candidacy. That's kind of de facto supporting the recall of Gavin Newsom, isn't it not? And then also, if we're going to be organizing a debate preemptively before the recall is actually successful, it seems like we're certainly egging that on. So I don't know that you can play both sides there, saying that you don't officially support the recall, but then you're supporting a candidate, which I like, Mr. Wildstar. So we're supporting a candidate that's actively pursuing that agenda, that would be running against this sitting governor, using the hashtag recall Newsom, and then also organizing a debate of the candidates that would also stand up against him. So I think that you're already too deep in the hole of basically saying that you support the recall of Gavin Newsom. That's just the only point of order I would put there. Whatever you want to do with that and go forward, maybe change, you're going to walk it back or water it down, you can do that. But I think you can't go out there and say, no, we don't support officially the recall of Gavin Newsom effort, standing next to Mr. Wildstar. You can't do that because you actively do support that effort in some way. So that's all I would say. I support the recall effort, just basically on the grounds that he doesn't support CalExit. So we need a governor who supports CalExit. I mean, that's enough for, I think, our organization to say we support the recall effort. You don't have to say it's about left or right politics, about the masks or the vaccine or this or that. Simply, our organization has one goal, that's California independence. If the governor that's in the office of that position doesn't support that goal, we need a different governor from our point of view. So that's why I support the recall of Gavin Newsom, besides any other partisan issues. Hannah wants to say something, Marcus.
Okay, one second. I want to make a comment. So, yes, I understand what you're saying. Just to be clear, maybe I didn't get my communication correct. My fault. As president, I take full responsibility. That was my mistake. I still like Newsom. I have never said that Yes California is all about getting rid of Newsom and we hate that guy and he's a monster and has to go. We've never said that. So what I have tried to do is say, hey, we'll work with the Green Party. We'll work with Republicans. We'll work with libertarian candidates. We'll work with communists. We'll work with Antifa. We'll work with hardcore red state people in other states. So we are aligned and associated with a lot of people. Doesn't necessarily mean we agree with all their stuff, but these are Californians. And Lewis, as you taught me, how are we supposed to get people to buy into CalExit when we're going, yeah, but not you? Well, I'm a Californian. I live here. Yeah, I don't mean you. Not going to work. So we have to show that we're at least trying to reach out to everybody. I probably got the messaging wrong and I take responsibility. Let's go to questions about specifically the recall debate to Nicholas Wildstar. We're only taking questions on the recall debate to Nicholas Wildstar. Hannah.
Yeah, reminding you that when we first discussed this previously, I offered to, and I was kind of consensus that I would be the moderator if it happens. And I'm a Democrat.
No.
And
If you could
also,
go
I have
first.
experience hosting debates on television. So I don't know if anybody else can say they've got experience actually doing this. So I think I'd be an excellent person to present the pro-California perspective and also keep everybody honest. Even though, and also as a scholar, as a lawyer, as a reporter, I think I'd be a very good person to moderate the debate and give credibility to it. Unless, so I hope that's still part of the plan.
We had agreed that you could speak first. I never said you were going to be moderator. So if people want you to be moderator, I'm willing to go with the. Am I muted? Can everyone hear me?
You were.
Okay, sorry. I personally requested that Hannah speak first, and either as a candidate or say why this is a horrible idea.
No, I just want to be moderator, and I'm willing to accept. It's just that we're going to talk Nicholas already mentioned the sort of the jungle primary aspect of this thing, and I think it'd be fine to just ask someone, okay, assuming we're going to, because it's a simple question, right? Okay, let's not even talk about whether Governor Newsom are going to be recalled unless you want to use your time to use that, or maybe whatever. We'll figure something out. But simply say, why should you be the one who replaces Newsom?
Yeah.
That's the real question we want each candidate to answer.
I think those are great questions. I took some of the questions you sent me. I sent a draft to Nicholas and Mike. These aren't softball questions. Nick can look at those questions. I didn't ask softball questions. I'm like, what were you going to do differently? How could you make it better? Why do we need this right now? How do you bring change? And I think if you can't answer those questions, maybe you shouldn't be a candidate. So this isn't a pushover debate. We're going to host a debate, but we ain't doing softballs. Never said that. Also, it's up to the group on moderator, but I never said guaranteed you were the moderator. No offense. But if the group wants that, then we'll go with what the board of directors wants.
Yeah.
Other questions, and I'll go with whatever the board wants. Other questions
I have
to
a
Nick
question
about
Mark.
the debate. Yes, please.
Just because you were, I'm just curious now because of what you just said. What is Mr. Wildstar's answer to that question?
Question, pardon me.
Which question?
About why specifically he should be the governor and not Governor Newsom?
Well, in simplest terms, without running up too much time, I'm a pro-independence California candidate. I believe I'm the only one that is, and I was in 2018 when I was the Libertarian candidate for governor. I was promoting California secession in. Actually, I was also advocating and promoting the 6 states California, I believe 6 or 7 states. Yeah, 6 states California initiative that was being pushed by Tim Draper. So I'm always supportive of us having our independence and our freedoms and liberties intact. I don't think that's going to happen by this administration nor any other candidate that happens to take place. But we, of course, can discuss that more in the debate. But to defend the guilt by association, I think that's also why Marcus has been inviting to me as a candidate. It's because I have let that be known ever since I've come across knowing him. And I believe, yes, California is open to any other candidate that happens to be pro-independence, but they've yet to step up to the plate. So here I am. But in that sense, with Hannah was talking about jumping on as a moderator, if we could have her join along with Tom Elias or, make it a group, because like we discussed, it's going to be open to the public anyway. So they'll be able, after the first few questions are asked, it'll be open to the public to ask questions. So it'll be a great way to, I guess, get in as many people involved in this as possible.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Any other questions about the organization of the debate to Nicholas, specifically how to organize this debate to Nicholas. Yeah, Jason. Let me unmute you. If you're,
I just like to keep myself muted because of background noise. So when I had initially like seen the viability, the potential viability, like as you had mentioned, you know, like if Yes California is, you know, ready to host the debate the moment that this thing is finalized and guaranteed going to happen, then that's huge for us. It only puts us up at the front. When I first was seeing the potential for it, I had some thoughts about, you know, what we've been talking about with, you know, candidates who are pro-independence that are running or will run, such as yourself. The thing that occurred to me is that some folks may take, so I would love to see the whole scene just flooded with like all sorts of different kinds of candidates who are mostly also pro CalExit, or at least willing to look at it. I only fear that maybe people might read that as we're trying to like kind of stack the deck, right? Trying to pull some typical American political maneuver, right?
Isn't that the goal though? I mean, it's basically legal lobbying, and you're doing it openly and honestly versus behind closed doors like the corporations and monopolies do it. So being transparent about our relationship makes the voter comfortable about what they're getting into. So they know, as governor, of course, my goal first is to make sure that we that I'm making the people of California happy, and you know, and our independence to me is one of the first few things. That's why I talk about, you know, creating our own energy company, so we won't have to be reliant upon PG&E and SoCal Edison, and our own currency, so we won't have to be reliant upon the Federal Reserve and when the dollar goes belly up, you know. And I have to speak about these ideas because the average voter isn't really considering them, to say the least. They don't see how it could be beneficial to them. So it's just tying to say this is how independence as far as policy is concerned can be beneficial to us as California residents, and then they'll see the pluses of it. Now, the safety precaution there for Yes California is if in an event that I do get elected and I'm not successful with making these policy changes to create more of the independence, you know, I guess, atmosphere for residents, is to say, well, hell, now we're just going to secede altogether and separate ourselves. And that's my guarantee and promise and commitment to Yes California. And I don't think, I think that any candidate that comes along and gets involved with Yes California, if they aren't willing to make that you know, statement to you guys, then, you know, they definitely should be questionable. But as far as the public is concerned, I, as just a voter, would think that any other candidate that came along that would say, I support this cause and this organization and I'm involved with it myself just to help it come to fruition, then that would really, to me, show their dedication to actually, you know, making that happen. I mean, I'm the first and only candidate that's come out and said that I would rewrite AB 392 and work with Yes California to make that happen, and made a video, you know, and put that out there publicly so others can see. So, and that's what I'm saying is it's a matter of the candidate whoever they may be, being genuine and being honest and true to their commitment to the cause. You know, win or lose, I'm still here to fight for that California independence.
Nice.
Other questions about
Okay.
the recall debate?
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Any other questions on the recall debate? Okay, Matt?
Basically, seems to me that the more candidates we've got participating in the debate, the more pressure there will be on Governor Newsom to join that debate. Okay, he doesn't, to defend his governorship. Otherwise, he leaves it undefended. He leaves the gloves vacant, so to speak.
Exactly.
So the more people with the more different points of view are there in a debate about the recall, the more it behooves Governor Newsom to come defend his record as governor.
Exactly.
Puts a lot of pressure on it, which is a good thing.
We're going to invite Newsom. We're going to invite Democrats. Not sure if they'll go, but they're going to be invited. We will have 5 questions, and everybody's going to be asked the same questions, and everybody's invited to work on those questions. They're not going to be softball. So
yeah, and
so far
there's only 8 declared candidates, 6 Republican, 2 independent, and Gavin Newsom, of course, is the only Democratic candidate. But invitations will be sent out to all candidates, and if we can get any publicity after, we get everybody solidified for the debate, then that's definitely going to put more pressure on him to want to accept that invitation.
We're also going to reach out to Kevin De Leon. De Leon was mentioned by Politico Magazine as one of the possible contenders. That's Kevin De Leon. Kevin De Leon.
Oh, yeah.
He was the guy after Trump was elected who said America's a foreign country and we're not like them anymore. Third highest ranking member of the California government, strongest statement about how California is not like America. Took a photo with Yes California when we had a protest in front of the Capitol with a sign saying CalExit. Also, Lewis is right. Newsom was asked in 2017, you can type in Gavin Newsom and CalExit. Now, when Newsom said, we're not going to follow federal guidance on coronavirus because we're a nation state, I love that. I love him for that. I loved it. I loved it when he said not following the feds on coronavirus guidance, we're a nation state. Loved it. California nationalism. And a lot of Californians backed it up. That's what people, what do you mean people support CalExit? The governor just said, I'm not going to listen to the federal government, and we're a nation in the same speech, and people loved him for it. What do you mean nobody believes in CalExit? That's the same damn thing they said in 1865. So, but in 2017, Newsom was asked about CalExit. And he said, I don't want to leave. We're all Americans. And I want to be there for the rest of America. The entire audience had frowns on their faces. So I'm not making this up. He's like, we're all Americans and we're going to come together and we're going to help them. And then everybody was like, so it bombed hard in front of an audience, live on video. He's never gone back to talking trash on CalExit since then. What that mean? So, okay, is there any other questions about the recall debate before we move on? Okay, we're gonna move on to the last section. There's a few more tips. If you can
wait, I got a question.
Sure.
Is somebody gonna address the fact that Newsom and the health department just basically said you're too stupid to understand the data that they're using for this COVID-19 lockdown, and they will not provide that data to the public? Is anybody going to address that fact?
No.
And that's out of the AP. That's out of the AP 2 days ago, man. And it's got me really pissed off.
I understand, and I am willing to talk with you in the open discussion forum. This is about production projects.
Well, I want to address the mayor or the gubernatorial candidates about that fact.
Yeah, well, that's constructive, yeah.
If we were to schedule the debate, Sam, that's why it would be open to the public. You see, Yes, California would have its 5 main questions, basically, that they want to make sure each candidate answers. Then after that, it would be open to the public to ask questions to the candidates. So you then could ask that to the panel of candidates, you see?
All right.
So our hope is to make sure that we're having this be successful as soon as possible. That way we can make it happen before the recall deadline, which is March 17th. That way we can talk about these issues and while they're still in, in the headlines.
We're going to have at 2 o'clock in 40 minutes. Wildstar, Michael Plumhoff, and I are having a debate on how to set up the recall debate. You are all open to be here. If you just stay here for 40 minutes. We're going to get onto that and have that separate discussion. Who all, just raise your hand, and I will include you in an email, would like to be involved in planning the debate? Raise your hand. Okay, so 1 second. Sam, Sue, Jason, Nick, Matt. Okay.
Marcus?
Yes.
I would just like to point out how low I have put my arms. I can't put them down any further than they currently are.
You don't want to be involved in the debate.
I don't want to be involved in,
Okay.
I don't want to be involved
All
in that.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. I just want to make sure anybody that wants to, I'm going to include you in an email, and you can go and you can give your 2 cents and be part of the discussion. It's going to go wherever the group decides the best to do it, but you can either be at the dinner table. What was that phrase? You can either be inside the tent pissing out, or you can be outside the tent pissing in.
Okay, Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah, so you want to be at the table, you ain't going to get necessarily what you want, but you can be at the table debating, or you can be not at the table and decisions made without you. Your call. Oh, okay, that's here at 2. Okay, moving on. If everybody could go to the chat, there is a link. This is only for board members. This is only for board members, only for board members. If you are not a Yes California board member, this is not for you. There is a WhatsApp chat room. We're asking only board members to join. It's there, the link's there. Blah, blah, blah. You can join that. That is our backup discussion room. It's available. We have a couple members who are overseas. So anybody can join WhatsApp. It's a private secure line. We'll be sharing information there. In addition to emails coming from about this board meeting. Okay.
Hey, Marcus.
Yes.
I wanted to say something about that. If I could suggest Signal instead. Yeah, because Facebook owns WhatsApp. And I guess because of security issues, et cetera, privacy concerns, a lot of people are abandoning ship from WhatsApp to Signal, I being one of them. So I don't know if it's been considered that WhatsApp dumped and we could use Signal instead, which basically works the same. It's just more secure and, they haven't sold out yet.
Okay, that's up to the group. Frankly, I'm not a techie, folks. So when everybody's like, here's this new app and you need to do this, I'm like, oh God.
I know.
Can I not be
What
the person?
about Telegram?
I would support Telegram just because the Signal is supported by the founder of Twitter. Or isn't it supported or founded by him or owned by him or something like that?
So there's Signal, there's Telegram.
He was the one that was gloating about his app being #1 after they took down Parler. That was Signal, wasn't it?
Robert, comments on that? Robert Stark?
I'm not 100% sure. I'll double check. May have been Signal. Telegram is overall better for privacy than WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And I'm not really a fan of WhatsApp because I uninstalled it because I was getting like nonstop spam messages.
Whatever the board decides. So if the board's like, hey, we all need to go to this, someone made the suggestion, let's get on WhatsApp because everybody could join and allows discussion, and it worked great. But we can always improve. I don't have a strong opinion. So I leave it up to the board, like, we got to go to Telegram or Signal or Giraffe Lies. I don't, whatever. Whatever the group decides. I would just
Can I
ask.
make a suggestion?
Yeah, let me just finish the sentence, and definitely you can. If you're saying we need to move over to a new app, I'm looking at you to help do the heavy lifting. So if you want a new app, I'm looking at you to help me reach out to the board members and get them all scooting over there because I ain't good at it. Jason?
So if my suggestion is if there are 3 different things that we are looking at, like, possibly switch it over to that. If each person who wishes to see it change to a different platform picks their platform, do the research, let us know, what we as an organization would really care about. Our privacy and security. Is this company attached to, things that we don't want to be attached to? The possible red flags as well as the green flags, so to speak. And maybe next week we make like 30 minutes to have each person go over what they've found, and then we could
Done.
have a vote on
It's on the agenda. Bring your best argument for your app next Sunday. This is a good topic, Jason. And I don't mean to be discouraging people. I'm just not a techie. So when people are like, this does this and this does that, I'm like, okay. So we'll have a big debate on apps next Sunday. Bring your best case. By the way, John Simha has been pushing Gilded. Gilded is a super fancy app with automated robots that you can program and AI and machine learning. The link's there for everybody. Jason, that's why you're a great general. We'll have that debate next week. Okay, moving on. Last subject, and then Matt has a presentation he's going to give, but we have to talk about this. Okay, Rabbi Axelman asked some very good questions about this group, and I wanted to have a brief discussion about them. I'm going to give my answer. You don't have to agree. It's our board. Mark, I don't think that's right. I think we need to be moving in this direction. I don't think it's phrased that way. It should be like this. You just saw Lewis calls me out. I love Lewis. Call me out. Question of thinking. This is what I want to be doing. Here are the questions from Rabbi Axelman. What population is the Yes California Board of Directors aiming for? Conservatives? Liberals? Within California? Outside of California? Are we trying to reach out to other secessionists? What is the goal of the Yes California Board? What are we trying to do here? And what are the tasks that will need to be done to achieve those? Are there any politicians on board with us to date, privately or publicly, any radio hosts, podcast hosts? I'm going to give my answer, and then it's open to everybody who's a board member to say, yes, Lewis.
Really quick, because I think I know what you're going to say, and I just want to remind you that you're recording this, so I don't know if you want to publicize like strategy so that the opponents of Yes California know what our strategy is, like the details of strategy, I guess. Speaking abstract terms, but I don't know if you want to open the playbook to those who are going to use it against you. That's all.
Good point. Good point. So this is part of the issue, is that there's 160,000 people, and there's 40 people on this board, and have private conversations with 40 people where I go, here, do that, but don't tell anybody. It's tough. So
I know, but as I understand, you publish this on YouTube, don't you? This conversation.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like, if you're gonna go in details about every, what the goal is, that's gonna be counterproductive. I think. I would just say, you can answer the rabbi's questions. I support the idea of answering questions, but just more in abstract terms, because you don't want to.
30,000 foot.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my 30,000 foot, no details, general answer. Yes, California's California. We support California values. We support what 2/3 of the majority of California think. At the same time, there's 1/3 of California that doesn't, and they're kind of conservative. And we have always said we're here for all Californians. I'm supposed to tell 1/3 of the population to get screwed and then say that I'm here for all Californians? That don't work. That's not going to work, folks, just straight up. So you're going to have to at least show you're willing to talk to conservatives, especially if they say, I don't like Trump and I support California values, but I'm a Republican. You're going to have to. Part of the reason is just to let them know we're here for all Californians. We're not trying to exclude people. We're not trying to round people up, don't share our political views and push them and forcibly remove them from California. Yes, I've had a couple fellow liberals suggest that to me. That's called an international war crime, folks. We're not suggesting it here. So we've taken a little bit of flack from fellow liberals for doing that. You're talking to these conservatives, why are you doing that? Because we want to show that while we're for California values, we're inclusive for everybody. The other half of this is this. Yes, California has said since 2017, we're working with conservatives in 35 states. How are you supposed to secede if you can't have a vote? Oh, I'm dead serious about secession, but I'm not interested in conservatives voting. It's not going to work. If you're going to be taken seriously as legally and peacefully serious about this, you have to show that you're trying to get the vote. If you're going to be taken seriously on that, you have to show that you have contacts. You're going to do that, you have to actually be talking to people in 35 red states. So if you are not talking to conservatives in 35 red states, you are not to be taken seriously that you're actually trying to legally do this. And so when we talk to other conservatives in other states who don't share California values, they go, do you have any conservatives in your board? Are you going to treat me like garbage, or are you actually willing to put up with me? And so what we're trying to do is show we're here for all Californians, although we are generally California values, of course. I myself am horrified by Trump. I'm going to mute a few people. Sorry, no offense. So got to show we're reaching out to conservatives, trying to include everybody, not being horrible meanies. And we have to show that we're reaching out to conservatives in other states to show that we have a legal pathway to actually do this. And that's roughly what we're trying to do, high level. We don't have any politicians who are backing this publicly, but I would point out that if you look back over the last 3 years, there's like 20 politicians who said, we're a nation state, we could do better than the federal government, we don't really need them. Now, they didn't say, I support, yes, California CalExit, but they're going up there saying, why do we need the feds? We're Californians, we can do it on our own. I don't really like those cultures, and we don't really need them, and we're different. Kevin De Leon said America's a foreign country. So explicit support, no. A lot of people talking like that, yeah. Last question is, this movement, this organization, Yes California Board of Directors, I know it's a little bit long. We're getting started. We're getting organized. But I think you can see there's a commitment to projects to raise publicity. So we had some really high-level discussion today, folks. Breaking down culture, separating the bonds emotionally, getting history videos out there, fundraising, raising a political party, talking to people who know data scientists, learning the best way to explain this on the internet, and fundraising for $1 million through a new political party vehicle. That's high level talk. I've been in Sacramento for 4 years. I've followed politics for 20. That's high level. We're already there. These are the kind of conversations that is as good and top as it gets. And that's the kind of projects we're going to follow through. Now, I know it's not moving as fast as you want, and I'm disappointed by that too, but give me about 2 more weeks. Promise you magic. Any radio hosts? No. We do have our own podcast. That's Darren Brown. So I'm going to turn that over to everybody. First, I want to go with Lewis. What is the goal of Yes California? Who are we trying to reach? High level. And then I'll turn it over to anybody to say what they think it should be. Lewis first, and then everyone else.
Well, I guess that my opinion would be that the goal is to raise awareness, and then I think that it happens organically at that point in time. I don't. That's what Marcus and I've always talked about, is that when we started this off in the beginning, it's not because of me or because of Marcus, even though we put some work into it. Once it reaches a certain level of support, it's going to happen by itself, and people with resources and with name recognition are going to back it because it's going to be opportunistic, and it's going to go organically from that point. So I think that our goal, and that's what we've been doing, is just getting it into the media so that the people are aware of the idea and aware of the fact that it's a thing, as they say, it's a thing. And therefore, when it gets to a certain point of support, it's just going to go, I guess, like a wildfire. You can use that word. That's it. That's my that's why I don't really like supporting any specific strategies, I guess, speaking about an abstract, because our goal is just to get attention on the idea. Because as Marcus told me when we first met, and I think you just mentioned it, a third of Californians support this without our help. They already support it. And if you look at, ask yourself, how many of the American colonists as a percentage supported the revolution? It wasn't unanimous. There were patriots, there who supported the crown, there were people in the middle, and there were the so-called patriots who were at the time domestic terrorists, I guess, right? And so if you look at it from that point of view, we don't need to have unanimous consent. We don't need to have even 50%. You can divide it into three groups: the people who are for it, the people who are neutral, and the people who are against it. And I think that the percentage is from what I remember in high school, was something like around 20 or 25% of the population were patriots, so to speak. I think there's even numbers that are less than that say that you need a even smaller percentage of the population to support something in order to affect change. So I think that's our goal, is just to get those people activated, and we do that by showing them that this is a thing. So that's why I do this. That was what I have in mind when Marcus and I are trying to stir the pot or rock the boat. Is not for attention from me or him, but just to get the idea out there, because the media will cover things that are dramatic. So we try to be dramatic.
Totally agree with that. I'm going to go to Rabbi Axelman next.
Hi. I hope I'm not producing.
Rabbi, real quick. I just want to make a comment, and then I'll go to Rabbi. Yes, I agree with Lewis. Everything he said is true. That's why I want to have these discussions, to get it all out there. We are about getting attention. When we got started, we said Texas versus white is a real thing. Nobody backed that up. We said California's a nation. You're crazy. We said America's fallen down. You're crazy. We said California's a donor state. You're crazy. We did that for years. People looked at us like we're expletive nuts. Now everybody says it. Governor, all the politicians, all the papers. Now, folks, maybe that happened without us, but I got to tell you, we were the first ones and the only ones saying it. So I think we alone got 40 million people using terms like, we're basically a nation. Yes, there is a way to legally secede. Yes, we are a donor state. No, we aren't just like America. So yeah, we did get attention and derive the conversation. Rabbi?
Yeah, hi. My purpose in asking these questions was not to in any way evoke defensiveness. So I hope I'm not, because I'm on your side. I'm more trying to focus. When you have a goal, it's always a good idea. I learned this even from my daughter. How will you know when you reached it? And that's kind of a research way of looking at things. When you raised awareness, how will you guys know? I'm a psychotherapist by trade. And if you've ever been to a therapist, one of our biggest problems is we never let you go. And the good therapists are asking, what will you be doing differently when you no longer need to come see me? So when this board is no longer necessary, how are you measuring your success? And I'm asking about people who are on board with you, because that's the way I want to work across the country. Obviously, I have connections with Texit. I'm supposed to be meeting tomorrow with somebody who's a big shot in New Hampshire, Foundation for Independence. I don't know if they're up and running. I don't know if they're a pipe dream. We have some contacts in South Carolina as well. I also keep track of the podcasters who mention the S word publicly. Daniel Horowitz, if you're familiar, now I'm on the conservative side, so I listen to those. I don't know if you guys know who that is. Dennis Prager, I believe, is probably the most prominent national host to have used that word. I believe he's a Californian. I don't know if you have connections to him, but you get unbelievable credibility. I mean, look, Rush Limbaugh said the S word about 6 weeks ago, and he almost pulled back on it, but that is shocking. And you have people like Daniel Horowitz raging against people like Mark Levin, even Ben Shapiro, who's one of your folks out there, for not backing these types of movements. So what I'm trying to figure out is who are the biggest people nationally or even statewide who are openly saying we got to take a serious look at all of these secessionist movements, and how do we get a hold of them? Because I think that's where you get your biggest bang for the buck, if anybody's willing to crawl out of their hole. I'm sure there are people out there. I think they're probably local people, small time people like Liberty Block, but that's what I'm trying to figure out. How do you get them? Because I'm working from the right and you're working for the left, and I think we all need to work together on this peaceful divorce idea. So that's why I'm asking these questions. I think you guys are great. That's why I'm here. I could be watching NFL, which I boycott.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification, Rabbi. Your wisdom has always been a great boundary maker and helped me focus. So I want to turn this over to board members. If you are a board member, what do you think the goals of this board should be? What do you think we're about? Jason.
So let me just start by saying I think that we have normalized the conversation about independence, autonomy, self-determination, secession, separation, our national divorce from the feds. I think we've normalized being able to talk about it. I remember growing up, like in high school and such, I had a great history professor who used to jokingly say, now remember, had the revolutionaries lost the war, they all would have been shot, drawn, quartered, hung, tarred and feathered, you name it. So they did take a huge gamble. And, you know, I think the times are much different, and we have a legal mechanism, multiple legal mechanisms, no less, for the pursuance of peaceful, non-violent secession, independence, self-determination, self-governance, right? So I think what Lewis was saying about raising awareness, yes, I think that is the, like, those, that phrase, those two words right there, that is the key. That's like that is the four chambers of the heart of the movement. That is the thing that is going to continue pumping the CalExit blood, is staying focused on raising awareness, right? Because what it does is, you know, after like 4, 5, 6 years, we've normalized being able to talk about it. As Marcus pointed out, you know, there have been politicians, governors, you know, which our commander-in-chief is our governor, not whoever is in the White House. Our California's commander-in-chief is actually whoever's in Sacramento sitting in that executive office. And we've had multiple now that have said the nation state thing, right? Which wasn't really going to happen before it got normalized. Before it's normalized, it's not a popular thing. And so politicians can't just, you know, I mean, they could, but it's almost a guaranteed political suicide to go out and just preemptively take on an issue that you feel is important. Even if it is actually a dire issue, if the people don't feel that it is, then the politician's not really going to get anywhere with it. So it had to be normalized first. And we did that by raising awareness, continually talking about it. And with whom? Well, with everyone. The red, the blue, the green, which is, you know, been registered green since 18. My thing is the corporate autocracy, you know. So reaching out to everyone, you know, as California is so diverse, right? And it's been pointed out, how can you say, you know, we're here to try to help all of California and all Californians, you know, this is California, California, and then go, but not you. That's not Californian. The Californian way of doing things is to do the opposite of that, including you and everyone. So raising awareness through just massive continual outreach and talking about it, speaking on these complex issues, also, you know, having the little 30-second tagline so that you don't end up giving, you know, a 15-page dissertation on the history of California. Because some people like that, but not everyone. And we need to be able to talk with everyone. So the 30-second, the 1 minute, the, you know, 150-page book, all of it, all of the approaches are needed, because it's all raising awareness and normalizing independence. That's my thoughts.
Okay. Click, I'm sorry, one second, 15 minutes. Okay, any other comments for 3 more minutes? Then Matt has the speech and we're gonna do a hard stop. So for 3 minutes, any comments on what the board is? Yes, Sam.
I'd unmute. I want to censor everybody that doesn't agree with me.
Please, Sam, I'm trying to keep it professional, brother. Thank you. Any other
No,
serious
I agree with Jason that if we are going to say we're all California, then left, right, and center all need to be represented. And that's all I got to say about that.
Okay, if you are a board member and you go, hey, this is what the board should be about, this should be our goal, this is the time now to say, here's what I think it should be about. Any opinions from any board members on what should be doing?
Board members.
You have to be a board member. Sorry. Yes,
Okay.
Matt.
Okay. The obvious thing, of course, is that as the board, we are about California independence. Okay. It's bloody obvious. Out to whom we should be reaching? Well, pretty much anybody we can, you know, that has an interest in us separating from the U.S. Certainly, we're arguing that Californians themselves have an overriding interest. Otherwise, what sense does our position make? Other people that are trying to do the same thing as we are. We were inspired by Scottish independence and continue to be. Catalonian independence has a eerie parallels to ours. Cascadian independence. We work quite closely with them. The recuperation of sovereignty by our own indigenous nations. We work in parallel with them. MIBC of Baja. We are inspired by each other, and they actually are reaching across to Cascadia and the indigenous nations. People in countries that are targets of what the U.S. is up to, which is something I'm going to be about to speak on, have spoken on. They have an interest in making it much more difficult for their countries to be targeted by the U.S. because of the structural effects that our independence would have. So there's a bunch of people that have a very vested interest in our independence, both inside and outside Alta California. And we need to be working with as many of them as possible.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, that's going to conclude our discussion on what the goals of the board should be. Maybe we'll hit this up again. I'm going to do a 2-minute speech right now, and then we're going to finalize with the presentation from Matt on reaching out to foreign nations. This recording will be made public. The next meeting will be this Sunday at 11. So thank you all for coming out. I just wanted to point something out. We've already achieved it. So the goal of this Yes California Board of Directors was to get a lot of intelligent, critical thinking people to have high-level discussions, operate like a corporation, and pursue publicity ideas. We literally had Zogby Polling here talking about polling. We literally were talking about forming a new political party with a fundraiser who does $800,000 in annual fundraising and another professional lawyer. We also had someone talk about deep psychology, splitting the Cultural Association from America with California and using a modern YouTube channel to do it, and who also talked about the marketing principles behind that. We also had a discussion about how do we go forward. And what I really liked was, someone was talking and then someone else jumped in with critical comments. I noticed that Hannah and Christine both jumped in with good critical comments. That was awesome. I also noticed that Jason and DeWonk, who've never met each other, already building relations. I've also noticed that Lewis is having conversations with other people. And I've also noticed that Mitchell, Don Sutton, Farhad, and Alistair have all agreed to work on a similar project because they thought that it was all a good idea, and none of them ever met each other. We're doing it. I promise you I will get better in the future. I promise you this will be more organized. But I also want to say that I've achieved proof of concept. We have about 38 people here, really smart. They're networking. They're asking critical questions. We are able to have productive meetings. We are talking about high-level production things that would impress anyone on earth. And we're making those contacts. We're going to keep doing it. I need a few more weeks of patience, but I think if you watch the videos, you can already see, yes, California is delivering. Thank you for being there. Okay, we're going to go to a presentation for 5 minutes from Matt Owens at 2 p.m. This recording stops. Hard stop at 2 p.m. It's over. We're having a separate conversation on the recall debate at 2 p.m. So 2 p.m., if you stay here, recall debate, this conversation is going to stop recording at 2 p.m. Matt, for 5 minutes, how are you reaching out to foreign countries and what are you doing?
Well, okay. You made a outreach to the people of Iran that we are dead set opposed to a further tightening of sanctions and increasing the risk of war against Iran. I just recently made a similar video reaching out to the Venezuelan people, bilingual, in which I had said that we have no interest in sanctioning or attacking them either. I made note of the fact that in the US, a coup attempt was just defeated, basically. Yet in Venezuela, the US government, including the minty new president who just defeated a coup attempt against his presidency, is acceding to the previous, he didn't make this up, but he's acceding to the previous US foreign policy backing a coup plotter. Now, Venezuelans, I can tell you, historically are as allergic to coups and coup attempts as Californians are. Hugo Chavez knew because he was on both sides of it. He started out as a coup plotter and it didn't go anywhere. But then he got elected president and a coup attempt was made against him and it didn't go anywhere. And the second one was made, it didn't go anywhere. They're very alert. They believe that their voice and their vote should be respected no matter by whom and what their point of view is. Okay, Venezuelans are crystal clear on that historically. And Californians are too. That was what was an issue between our people, our government, and the Mexican central government. They kept trying to impose military officers on us, and we kept sending them back. Okay, so we've always been, as you know, in two countries that are congenitally allergic to coup attempts. And so a coup attempt was defeated in the US, and then the person, you know, who defeated that attempt turns around and supports a coup in Venezuela. A few interesting things about that. Venezuela, they just elected a new National Assembly, which up until that time, for years, the National Assembly was in the hands of the opposition. President Maduro, exercising his constitutional powers, tried to do an end run around it by doing basically a constitutional convention, the ANC. And so the ANC was put in the position of, basically being an organ to which both the sitting National Assembly and President Maduro were answerable, to which they were accountable. And that's been a very complex kind of thing in the midst of a U.S. siege and all that sort of thing. But now the National Assembly, they just had an election, which is much, much more transparent. And like I say, they were in the hands of the opposition. Now the ANC has reverted to Maduro's party. But their elections, if we had half the transparency their elections have, which are crawling with international observers, every single one of them, then perhaps our elections would have a less opaque outcome. They certainly have nothing like the Electoral College. Okay, so I made a video similar to the one Marcus made to the Iranian people, to the Venezuelan people, and says, hey, we Californians will have no part of any further sanctions. We will have no part of any attempt to attack Venezuela in any way. That's not us. That's them. So yeah, I did make a video, a bilingual video, letting them know this, that we are dead set opposed to any shenanigans the U.S. has against them, that we are dead set opposed to coups as they are. We are as much defending clean, open, honest, transparent elections as they are. And that basically that is a foreign policy stance that I offered as a ambassador of Gran California. I hope it made sense to the other ambassador of Gran California who's in on this call. I think she's nodding. And so,
one more minute.
yeah, so that's what we're saying. And California as an independent country gets to do that. Okay, gets to make its own foreign policy positions. So do the people in other countries. We might not always agree on what those should be. We shouldn't be expected to agree on what those should be. We're two separate countries, but each of us retain the right to do that without the US coming into our countries, to Gran California, to Venezuela, to Iran, to any place else, like it owns the world. I tell them, I says, these US Americans, these Yankees, they comport themselves like they own the whole planet and everything and everybody in it. They do not. Not California, not Venezuela, not any place. Okay, so yeah, it's basically, it's a solidarity message from one independent country to another about the one that insists that it owns everything and everyone.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. That completes our recording. I'm going to hit the end record button right now. Oh no, that's the stop video. Huh? All right, let me figure this out. Stop recording. Do you want to stop the cloud recording?